Test 1, 2, 3.
Stand by, folks. We're buffering at the moment. Can I call this meeting to order, please? We are live now. Ben Markman. Shh. Everybody here? Good, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Electoral Area Service Committee meeting. And I think I've already wished everybody a Happy New Year, so we'll go past this one. I would also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that for thousands of years, we have walked on the unceded territories of the Quw'utsun, Malahat, Subaset, Halalt, Penelakut, Stanimus, Liaxun, Pocachin, Ditidat, and Pachidat peoples where we now work. And with that, I would ask Mr. Robbins to do the business.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to start your things off, just a motion to approve the agenda as circulated, please.
Moved by Director Martman and seconded by Kate. And next on the
Call the question.
Call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes.
Moving to agenda item 2, Mr. Chair, is a public input period, an opportunity for those online, which we don't have today, but I understand there might be some input for the committee from somebody in the gallery.
Yes, good afternoon. Identify yourself, please, sir, and then carry on.
Yes, thank you, Chair Wilson, and directors and staff. My name's Dave Munday. I'm the president of the Shawnigan Basin Society. So we're talking about budgets. Our function is 488. It's not on your agenda. And I just wanted to clarify, you were presented by one of my colleagues, Bernie Eurlink, did a delegation presentation, so I'm assuming you know about the Shawnigan Basin Society. One thing I want to clarify that it may be confusing. Certainly I look at the meetings online on YouTube, and a presentation, Keith Lawrence was here earlier in the day. They made a presentation on the drinking water watershed protection function, and there's a community organization function. They work with community organizations, and they mentioned the Shawnigan Research Group as a function, as a group that they would take part with. I just wanted to clarify that I was a member of the Shawnigan Research Group, as were many of my colleagues in the Basin Society. It was an ad hoc group, and it met at the community center and provided input to the director. But we realized that to do what we want to do as professionals, we want to support the CVRD. I'm personally a professional biologist, and it's all sorts of expertise in the Basin Society. To do that, we needed more infrastructure. So at the time, Bruce Fraser was sick, and I took over as president of the Basin Society, and the Shawnigan Research Group migrated into the Basin Society. So we're there. I think we're going into our 5th year now of zero funding, and frankly, a lot of our effort is put towards fundraising, and it really should be, in this day and age, put towards climate change and ecological encroachment and the things that are happening in South Cowichan. So I would just like to clarify that. I would, just so you know, I mean, we're still active. We put in a $200,000 grant proposal to Eco Action Canada, which is Environment and Climate Change Canada, to look at milfoil removal in the lake, which is one of the major problems. So that's the kind of thing that we could do more of if we could just get on the funding agenda. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mundy. And I think if any of the group of the committee has any, excuse me, questions or comments that they'd like to ask at this time. I have one comment. Anybody? No? Thank you for that, Mr. Mundy. I will confer with the director of the area, Director Acton, offline, and we'll try and bring this back forward at the appropriate time to see if there's anything that can be done. But thank you for your
I
words.
appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'll turn the speaker off.
Thank you. Mr. Robbins, next thing on the agenda, please.
If there's nobody else to provide input, agenda item number 3 is for your information. There are 6 items where various electoral area commission minutes for your information.
And as Mr. Robbins says, they are for information. Are there any comments that anybody would like to bring up on those 6 items? No? Okay. Moving on then, Mr. Robbins, please.
We move on to section 4, which is reports. If I may, Mr. Chair, just a couple of things. On report R5, on recommendation 10, I'm told that it inadvertently refers to area F, and that should be actually area E, for your information. And just to help you along, I just thought I would take a moment just to provide you perhaps some procedural tidbits that you might want to use today. You may want to look at these as blocks, and so that you can move the business along quickly and pull things out if you wish to have further discussion. The other thing is there's no time constraint today for you to put together recommendations on the fly. I know that there has been some communication and there has been suggested a bit of a template that you can use, and certainly introduce those recommendations today if you're prepared or they're of a simple nature. But don't feel it's necessary that you need to get your recommendation today, but you can make note of something that you may bring back perhaps tomorrow, where you have the opportunity either to talk with staff, myself, in terms of perhaps putting together a resolution, or give yourself a bit more time. So there's no real hurry for you to do that today. And so to move things along, I'd suggest again, you might want to look at a block, pull those items under each of the reports that you may wish to have further discussion. You may have a recommendation already, but again, don't feel obligated to make a recommendation today, but certainly we'll bring it back tomorrow. With that, we'll start with then report R1, and that's report from the Finance Division with regards to the 2023 draft budgets. Electoral area, there are 16 recommendations with regards to draft budgets for various functions. I'm not sure if you want me to just go over the function number, or how would you like it to be going to the record?
Let's go over the function number only, and then we'll see if anybody
Excuse me,
wants
Mr.
to
Chair,
to
I've
pull
had my
anything-
hand up for a
anything.
while. I'm sure you can't see me, but about the process, I got a question and a comment.
I'm sorry, Director Acton, I missed you there. So go ahead, please.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt, but I've had my hand up for a while. I'm wondering about this process. I came here prepared today to talk about each function. In the past, this is not how we generally have done budget. Once it has moved along, it's been really challenging to make any amendments or make any changes. So I'm kind of confused. How come we're not here to roll up our sleeves today and work on these budgets, and why we would move them as blocks? So how do you plan to run this meeting, Mr. Chair? Thank you.
Mr. Robbins.
I just simply offer to the committee a way of getting through. Certainly, if you'd like to go over each of the functions, most certainly do. I just thought I'd suggest if there was nothing that didn't necessitate further discussion, that you would look at it in a block. Ms. Mohan might have a bit more to help you as
Go
well
ahead,
with
Ms.
the process.
Mohan, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to reiterate what our corporate officer has said, that there physically probably isn't enough time to dig in on every budget because there's 178 of them. So in order for the process to move along and be accomplished in the time that we have available, we do need to consider some efficiencies of process. It's entirely the board's prerogative or any board member's prerogative to pull one of these budgets, whether it's a zero increase or a decrease or an increase budget. It's entirely their prerogative to pull any given one for discussion, but where we can actually say, yeah, this group of 5, we don't have questions, we're satisfied with where the budget has landed, can be improved in blocks. Anytime that can be accomplished will help your process. So.
Yeah, understood. Director Acton, in this particular case, and I see you, Director Morrison, I'll get back to you in a moment. Are there any in particular that you would like pulled, or do you want to discuss each one in turn here?
Absolutely. If you could do small blocks then, and then we can pull from the smaller blocks.
That's what we're suggesting at the beginning, which is what Mr. Robbins said.
Whole report.
Yeah.
Not just the whole report. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think I just want to maybe get some clarification from staff and just ensure that we're all on the same page as far as our goals here today and the opportunities that we will have, because we're in committee right now, and this is where we do the heavy lifting and get the work done, and all of what is being recommended will ultimately go to the board. But Director Acton made a really good point, is once you go through and make recommendations that items be approved, then later in the process, it is not necessarily the easiest thing to not only remember the ones that you wanted to bring out now further discussion, but sometimes we sort of get crunched for time to be able to do those things. So I guess somebody's. So my question is, not with, I don't have the calendar right in front of me, but are we going to have that opportunity for the sober second thought and the ability at the board to, if we need to bring these forward after they've been recommended at committee, to have fulsome discussion if a director has a specific one that they want to address?
Yeah, it's a good point. I'll tell you what. Let's do a compromise here. For instance, on R1, the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are all grants in aid. I could propose those as a block and then go to the next one and see if anybody wants to pull it in that kind of thing. But there are certain ones here that we can move forward as a block. Would that be a suitable compromise for the time being? Anybody? Any thoughts? See you nodding heads. Yep. Sierra? Yep, hang on a second. Let me go ahead, Sierra.
I'd like to pull number 1, please.
You'd like to pull number 1? Okay. Okay then, so we're going to pull number 1 from that. So in this particular case, Mr. Robbins, if I got this correct, it will be items 2 through 9, which we can go forward with for a block approval of. They're all grants in aid. Anybody else want to pull anything in that block? No? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Hang on, I think I see Karen. No? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by by Director Abbott and seconded by Director Segal. All those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed. Now, number 1, moving back. Do we move backwards to number 1 now?
Certainly.
Director Acton, number 1. Can you go ahead, please?
Yeah, I'm wondering, Mr. Chair, were you the representative for the CVRD on the library board?
I was.
Can you talk about this budget at all? I'm really challenged by the library budget every year with a large increase, and I'm not seeing the level of service at the libraries, as much as I love the library, I'm not seeing an increase in service and actually I'd seen quite a decrease through COVID. And so just wondering how they're
Absolutely.
doing, and should we continue to expect increases every year? Because it seems to be an open-ended budget.
Yeah, yeah, understood. And most of that, the rises that we're seeing have been for the same reason as every other organisation throughout Canada is seeing, and that is the increase in salaries and benefits for the staff and being able to attract staff to actually work there. Those discussions were held in closed committee, so I can't comment on the actual specifics of that. Having said that, there was a agreement reached with the staff there on the conditions. That accounts for quite a major change in the funding model. There are also quite a few older buildings which are in need of refurbishment, and in some cases, brand new buildings which are being funded through MFA and other places. And it's the kind of thing that we're asking for from this budget. So, but mainly it's to do with staff and the facilities which need upgrading at the various libraries, which are beginning to show their age quite considerably. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. That's all good information. I guess my question would be to staff, if we have any functions that are like this, that we could invite them to come present their budget a little bit, or obviously the library can't go to every board across the island, but they could video a presentation of some sort, or so I'm wondering through staff, is that something we can request, or have we seen that with other functions? Because I feel like we're almost blindly approving these types of budgets.
Interesting point again. I'm not sure who the library representative is for. Karen. Yeah. Would it be possible at your next meeting to bring this point up with the library board and ask if they were willing to give a presentation to our board to see what, to basically present as much information as they can? And question to staff, would that be okay?
Mr. Chair, in other communities, I've seen this as common practice that the library board would come forward. It's just really up to the committee and board to decide if you'd like to request that, but it is done in other communities. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, good stuff. So, Director Deck, if you could bring that up. Will we need an advance to send a request to the library board, an official one?
Sorry, a request. Yeah, I think it's only fair to give them time if they haven't been requested to do this in the past.
Okay.
But like an annual, it would be expected of them to do like an annual presentation so you understand the operations and their needs.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Director Acton.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you, CAO, Danielle. So I guess there's probably through this budget process going to be a few functions that are like that, because we have, in my opinion, not been inviting enough of them to present to us. So perhaps we can discuss this at a later date. Thank you.
Okay, good. And in the meantime, we'll work on getting them to come forward in the next few weeks to give a presentation. So going back then to this particular one, number one, I think we need to decide that one now, as we've discussed it. Do we have a mover and a seconder for this? Or do we put it on a abatement?
Can I step back and ask a point of clarification?
Absolutely, yeah, go ahead.
Microphone.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, and I'm gonna look silly here, because first time going through budgets. Looking back to the meeting last week, now, not everybody that spoke, but it seemed like the consensus or the majority was to be, get the eraser out, right? I'm wondering, is this the time where we're making recommendations about the amount the budgets are increasing? And I know this is going to go to the committee the whole, for approval, but, you know, is this where we are doing our bit to, you know, balance that 15% increase that we were looking at proposed budget? Yeah.
Good question. Let's, I think in this particular case, there are some concerns here as far as passing this one is concerned. Can we put this one on the back burner for the time being to talk about in more detail?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, but staff might provide some assistance with the general question by Director
Good, Ms.
McClinton.
Bowen, go ahead.
Through the chair to Director McClinton, you, this is your opportunity to bring up some stuff that you would like to see changed.
Okay.
We will be bringing, there'll be the regional stuff will go on the 26th.
Yeah.
Then we bring everything back on February 23rd.
Okay.
And I think we're still working on the second date of that 2-day one where we bring it all back as all the changes that you've made at all the meetings,
Gotcha.
what the thing, and then that's your next kick to make any changes.
Yeah.
And then we have to adopt on the 8th of March.
March.
Because our deadline to have everything done is March 30th, and to the province, we're different than munis, where they get till May, we only have till March. So our timeline is creeping up, and we're quite short-staffed in the finance department to keep on top of everything for you guys, so
Right.
yeah.
You look as though you got a
Yeah,
follow-up
I
there.
mean, I just don't know how to follow procedure here correctly. You know, I've got a lot of thoughts about, you know, I'm curious to know, perhaps we could go around the table once. I'm curious to know what the other, board members think, and how we want to approach this. You know, it seemed at the last meeting that there was serious concern about a possible 15% increase. And I mean, if this is our opportunity to address that, I mean, we better dig in, right? And, you know, this is my first time doing it. I'm gonna look to, you know, some of the directors that have been at this table before for a little bit of guidance, but, you know, I'm staring down an 11% increase for the library. You know, I mean, are we gonna talk about these one at a time? Where do we wanna go with it? So,
Okay.
those are open-ended questions that I don't know how they can be answered, yeah.
Sure. Let's do a round table if necessary then. Is there anybody who would like to speak on this particular one? Yes, then Director Deck.
The Vancouver Island Regional Library Commission is meeting on the 28th of January, so I'll be attending that in Nanaimo, and I can ask the question there. I don't know if that's soon enough for, I don't know if that's soon enough for finance.
Through the chair to Director Deck, we get the information from the library. They tell us what they're going to levy us. We don't get a negotiation in that, so it comes to us, we have it, and they've already approved their budget back in November, so the number that we have, I don't think it will be changed for this year.
Yeah, that's right, and I'm going to go to Director Morrison because of his experience in this, and as I've said, the budgets that the VRIRL puts forward, as you say, are almost written in stone because because of the rises they've had to cope with in order to keep going there. So this particular one, I think, is going to be almost impossible to change. My personal opinion is that I value libraries highly. It would be one of the ones that I would be very reluctant to go after. Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a perspective that I approach these from, and perhaps this will help Director McClinton and some of the others. So firstly, just on VIRL, they send us the bill, we pay it. There's no negotiations, so we may as well just deal with it and move it forward. In regards to my approach here, you know, I've gone through and noted the ones that will have a direct impact on requisition in my area. Already had the discussions with staff. I'm comfortable with moving forward in blocks or for individual directors to pull items out. But partly why I asked the question earlier and I didn't really get a response is that, yes, this is where we do the heavy lifting and we sharpen our pencils and we do what we can. And then tomorrow is going to be very important in the supplementals, the staffing, those sorts of things, capital, new vehicles and the likes. But it's just, my question that I posed earlier I don't want to get into the position, because this has happened in the past, where we get to those meetings in February and there's intense pressure to move things forward when we may still have additional desires to make changes. And so this is our first crack at it. I've done most of my homework in advance, and I don't really need to debate any of the ones that are for my area. If you have concerns about specific budgets that you're the only participant in, or you in another jurisdiction, we can have those discussions today. But for the most part, if you've done your homework and you know what's in there, and you're prepared to let them move forward on the basis of what's been recommended, then we should be able to deal with those fairly quickly, and the chair can help us to, move second and get through them, unless you're looking for significant changes on a wholesale basis. I'm not.
Through the chair.
I'm just going to go to Ms. Bowen
Sure,
first,
please.
and then I'll come back to you.
Through the chair to the board. So what we will do after today, if any changes that you make and we decrease anything, because I know there's some recommendations coming through, Angela and I will be working in the background to update our requisition spreadsheet, so that number that we gave you last week is going to change. So if you decrease something or increase something today, we will rejig those numbers and then have that new number for you tomorrow on what the decisions you made today are, how it's going to affect that number overall. Just remember that the regional services don't come in until the 26th, so it still might be a little bit on the high side, but we will take all the numbers that you do and we will rejig that number and have a new number for you guys for tomorrow.
Before you go on, I just forgot to say, pass on regrets for the normal chairperson, Director Nicholson, for not being here. She's not well, and we wish her well and hope she gets better very soon. So I'm on the fly here as well. All right, but go ahead, Director McClinton.
Through the chair to Director Morrison, it is very helpful, and thanks for sharing that. I guess I'll just leave with a comment. And again, I'm not here to, I think there's a lot of smart people at this table, and, I think we want to see what's done best for a community. I mean, we've got a baked-in 6% increase with our regional rec. So, I mean, if we want to get anything close to single digit, we're going to have to make tough decision after tough decision after tough decision. Now, maybe that's not what we want to do, but I mean, I'm staring down at an 11% increase, right? I mean, do we go through each one and debate the merits? I think there just has to be, I guess I may be looking to hear from my colleagues about where their head's at, where their philosophy is on these sorts of things. So, everybody, we talked a big game at the last committee meeting. We all talked about getting the eraser out. I mean, so comment, I don't know Chair, how you'd like to handle that, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, thank you, Director McClinton. So we're at the stage now, Vancouver Island Regional Library, item 1 on this particular one. I think we can move this one forward. It's something we have no control over. So I'm going to call I'd like a motion to accept, please. Director Segal, seconded by Director Morrison. Call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? I don't see any opposition, so that one is passed. I think the next one then is item 10, draft budget for function 130. Oh, hang on a second. Director Acton, you have your hand up. I'm using Mr.
Yes.
Robbins as my wingman and spotter here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to discuss this one. It's not a large one. I would like to hear from staff if the requisition amount could be reduced. I am on the same page as Director McClinton, and I think our budgets it's just a little bit from each, and I'm not talking about, and I don't want to see certain budgets getting reduced either. I don't think we're going to put that lens on everything, but where we can, I think we should pull out. And if it takes longer, it takes longer. anyway, so for this budget, I see that every year we requisition 15,000. There was 15,000 that was brought forward from reserves, but we haven't been using the 15,000. So I'm wondering if staff has any issues, and I don't actually have the number in front of me of how much is still in reserves, if we could reduce that requisition amount in half.
Yeah, we've got Rosa, I think it is, and I do apologise for using your first name as
Good,
opposed to
Miss
your thing.
Thompson.
So I think she has, and we are talking about item 10 here, correct? Okay, go ahead.
Through to the chair, we have a $15,000 requisition in that budget. I pulled the budget this morning. We have a $15,000 surplus in that budget. So we could probably take 10,000 off the requisition or drop the overall electoral function, what the board or what the committee would like. Electoral feasibility studies is if somebody wants a new function in the electoral area service, then we dip into this function. If we end up taking over, for example, a water system, if somebody comes to us and says, we'd like you to take over our private water system, we dip into this function to do a study so we know how much it's going to cost, what kind of shape this budget is in, or this system is in. Then we have a better understanding what's it going to cost to take over, what it's going to cost to operate, all those types of things. So it kind of gives us some help. Another option here is the provincial government. The provincial government has a feasibility function, but we have to come up with a portion of it. So if we spend 15,000 on a study, which is low, 15 to 20,000 is the average study, and we apply for this grant, the government can pay 10,000. We have to pay the rest. And we bring reports forward to the committee to say, okay, we have water system out in area D that wants us to take it over. We would like to apply for the grant and use electoral feasibility money to pay for the engineering company to do the study. And then we move ahead. So everybody has an opportunity to use it. All the areas have kind of used it in the past. If we take over that function, that water system, sewer system, whatever, pays us the feasibility money back. So it comes back into this budget. In 2022, we did a study for Couch and Bay Marinas, so all the boats there. They paid it back in 2022. A lot of the other ones, Carlton Water, Shelwood, all kinds of ones have paid money back when we've taken them over. If we don't take them over, it's kind of lost money.
And in this particular case, then, if we could reduce the 15,000 to 5,000, take 10,000 from the reserves, which makes us up to the 15,000, which we would get back from the government eventually, but we would reduce the 15,000 that we're asking for. Is that correct?
Correct. That 10,000, we don't have any at the province right now, so I just put it in case, perhaps. And actually, we did have somebody from Yubo area asking us about taking over water systems. So if they really want us to go ahead, we'll bring a report forward and say, apply for the feasibility at the province and this. And that's what that 10,000 is for, just in case.
Okay.
So, so I hope that explains it a little bit.
Director Acton, so if
moved
I'm
to
understanding
reduce
it correctly, then we could reduce this 15,000 to 5 and take the 10 from reserves, which would reduce this particular part?
What Louise is saying, that they would do it later if they need it. So I would move that we just reduce the requisition by $10,000.
Second? Yep, okay then. Thank you, Director Acton. So the motion on the floor then is to reduce this requisition to $5,000. Any more comments on this particular one? No? I'm going to call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Director Morrison, anybody else on the small screen there? Director Deck? So Director Deck and Director Morrison opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. 2023 draft budget, function 197, GM land uses. Director Segal.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to talk about this one just for my understanding and maybe for the newer directors. This seems to be for a general manager position, but just this one. I don't see line items for every general manager position, so just like for more context for me to understand would be great. Thank you.
Staff comment on this one, please. Yep, Mr. Elf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a new budget, allocation budget for the general manager land use services position. It mirrors strongly the existing GM allocation budgets for the GM of community services and the GM of strategic services. So 3 of the 5 GMs have, or 2 of the 5 GMs have allocation budgets. Mine has been within the functions within land use services. So any costs associated with the general manager land use services have been spread amongst budget 325, community planning and building inspection and bylaw enforcement, and previously parks and trails. So this provides you with some more transparency around the GM's budget to see what the salary benefits breakdown is, travel, training, conferences, team development, all of that. So yeah, it's for transparency purposes, and CAO could speak to the other GM budgets and how they're apportioned if that's information that you're looking for.
Thank you, Ms. Gerolf. One comment, well, or rather observation of mine, are we looking at, and I know that the land use services are very, very busy with planning and everything else. Is this an expansion of staff to take care of that expansion in work, or is this just another, I'm sorry to put this the wrong way, another addition to the staff complement that we're going ahead with here? Basically, how, put you on the spot, how important is this?
Well, I feel like you're asking me if you value me. So it's a new budget, but the funds are not new. So the funds have been distributed amongst other budgets previously. They're now in what we're calling, what is an allocation budget. So it's taking all the funds that have been distributed in other budgets and putting them in one place. So it's transparent. So the plan is not to sort of secretly add some more staff to other budgets.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. And I value you very highly as well. So that was the wrong way of putting
Mr. Chair,
it.
if I could just...
I see Director Acton. I'm going to let the CAO go ahead first, and then I'll come back to you, Director Acton.
Sorry, this is on? Yes, you can hear me. And I will just draw your attention to the information sheets, because at the very end there's a year-over-year comparative analysis per function, and it actually shows you the allocation at the top of that. You can see it gives you a lot more information if that helps you scroll through that. So just drawing your attention to that.
You know what my accountancy loans are like, don't you? Director Acton, go ahead, please.
Thank you. So what I heard was that this is essentially a new function, which is fine. I'm just wondering about the process. I thought that regional districts couldn't just create new functions. Did we have an AAP for this, or how did we go about creating this additional line item? Was it, anyway, can't remember.
Chair, I think I'll defer to our GM of Corporate Services. It's not a new function.
Yeah. Ms. Mohan.
Thank you. Through the chair. So this is really, there's really no change to the budget here. It's a structural change. So whereas previously there was one account where the GM corporate services, or sorry, there were the GM corporate or GM land use services salary was individually apportioned to different functions. Now we are putting it all in one function and applying a percentage to distribute it instead. So it's just a structural change. There's no additional staffing. There's probably a very small increment just to reflect the normal costs that go up with staffing, but this is not an incremental position. This is just a way of more effectively structuring the salary so that it's easier to administer and more transparent where the monies to fund that salary are coming from.
So basically, we're not seeing an increase of $150,000 a year.
No. And it's not a new service, so we're not adding a service or anything like that. It's just, again, a structural exercise within budgeting to make it clearer where the salary is coming from.
Director Acton, do you want to have a follow-up? You still got your hand
So I understand that, so, but it's still a function number, that number, we're able to create function numbers, or that's just what I'm asking about.
Yes, we are, that is correct.
Okay.
Director McClinton, go ahead.
Through the chair to staff, and I first just want to say, it feels a little awkward, talking with this positionally here, so I just want you to know how much I value you, but also I'm here to talk about budgets. So I did hear you say there's possibly an incremental increase, right, spread out. I think it would be very helpful to know what that incremental increase would be. Are we talking? So I guess what I would love to know is, we have the new position, what was reduced and by how much?
So I can't speak specifically to this particular budget, but what I can tell you is that the general managers have employment contracts which, and the board has passed resolutions around salary administration, and we follow those. So for the GM level staff, there is an increment that is indexed annually to Victoria CPI, but there is a cap on it of 2%. So this year in particular, general managers and some other senior managers will get far less than the cost of living because there's a cap at 2%. So, and then there are sometimes increases associated with things like mileage reimbursement rates on travel and conference attendance costs and those kinds of things. So those would be the kind of increases that you might see. The other kinds of increases you can see in management salaries is that when managers are hired, they're hired generally on a 5-step program that reflects their service with the organization. So for the first 5 years of someone's employ, they will get an increment based on satisfactory performance. And then once they get to the 5th step, there's no further increases. So
That's great, thank you.
Director Acton, go ahead, please.
Sorry, didn't put my hand down.
Okay. Okay, Director Martman has his hand up. Go ahead, Director Martman.
Thank you. Hope you can hear. I sit back a little bit. So when you look at this 197 function, I come from a background of working provincially, and one of the things happens when things get, I think, concerned about dollars being spent, they put a freeze on travel. So is this something that could be teased out of this, and what that would cost, what that would be savings? And then would that be extrapolated across different departments?
Ms. Mohand.
through the chair to Director Martman, first, you mentioned function 197, but I think we're talking about are we talking about 197? Yeah, okay. Just wanted to make sure we had the right function. So, yes, that is something the board could pursue, a freeze on travel. So I would suggest that if that's one of the ways that the committee and or the board wants to explore, they would give direction to staff. And as a result of that direction, then we could advise you as to what would be the potential consequences and how easy or difficult that would be to do across the budget. So it's a bit of an exercise because every single budget has a travel expense, and so we'd have to adjust all of those. But that's certainly at the board's discretion, yes.
I'd like to move the 197, Mr. Chair.
Director Martman, I had my mic switched off instead of on. Director Martman, go ahead.
Thank you. I think there was a couple of questions asked at the last committee meeting on this function that I'm not sure I know where we've landed. One of them I think was, I want to say GIS, but I'm not sure if that's the right term, where it was about $100,000 increase, and I think we were going to have some information about that to come back to us. And the other one was around the FCM travel, which I think we did we clarify that as well? How many people would be going to would be eligible to be compensated to go to that meeting? And
yeah, GIS did come up. I'm not sure if that was in this function or not. Any staff member could comment on that particular one? Ms. Mohand and Ms. Bowen coming up here.
So yeah, well, Tracy and I are going to tag team it today based on our relative knowledge of things. So with respect to the GIS portion of the 250 budget, so the allocation has gone up. So there's two sort of factors that would affect that. One is just a general increase in the GIS budget, and you will have a chance to look at that in more detail when you look at Function 100, because GIS is part of Function 100, and then it gets allocated out from there. So the process of allocating centralized corporate services to the different areas of the organization is one that we adjust year over year. And we do that to get a formula that's predictive, that is as close as possible to actually what happens in terms of how those services are used. And so, for instance, one of the methods that we've used in the past is sort of number of desks. So, you know, if you have a very large department and you have a large number of desks, you're going to use a disproportionately higher number of the centralized services like HR, IT, that kind of thing. So, but we adjust it every year to more closely approximate what actually has happened, so that it's a better predictive function. And it also means we have to adjust it based on how departments grow and how their demands change. And so some of the changes to the allocation for the GIS has to do with the change to the overall formula that we made this year to better apportion allocated services across the whole organization.
Also, to add to that, GIS is an 80-20 split between Function 100 and Function 250, and I'm still trying to dig up how that started. So I'm still in the process of trying to find that information. But as for the FCM, to the chair, to direct me, FCM, the last that, it was 3, so we can drop that budget down to, it was 3 people on a rotating basis is what you guys had decided on, so that everybody would get the opportunity to go every other year, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that was my understanding as well, that we wouldn't give everybody the opportunity to go every year. We would allocate, 3 this year, then the following year 3 others, and including, of course, the chairperson and possibly the CAO as well. Go ahead.
So would that be something that we would have to have an amendment to this to make that happen? Because it doesn't reflect that right now. Okay.
So that would be amended and there's somebody in the background doing that, right?
To the chair, to the board, yes, my fairy upstairs is helping me do all this.
Good.
Motion driven if you'd like to see that particular part of the function.
Okay, suggestions then, we are,
There was a motion, I don't know.
yeah, we're amending that.
Yeah, that'd be preferred.
Go ahead.
But I don't know if that's the only amendment we're making right now.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Budget 250 also would have miscellaneous technology and software upgrade expenses. So that's another one that there has been discussion about an alternative laptop, tablet. So just to, it has been dropped down. Previously it was 13,500, I believe. So you would need to increase that nominally for the equipment. That's just a note because there has been quite a lot of conversation on that one.
Good, so tomorrow, again, I'm wrestling here. Tomorrow we will have some new figures to look at, Ms. Bowen, is that correct? Excellent, good stuff, thank you. In this particular case, Mr. Robbins, lead me by the hand again.
If there was anything definitive that the directors wanted to make on 250?
I think that,
And it may only just be Director Bartman at this time?
I think it was something along the lines of reducing budget so-and-so by...
It is that, but I didn't know there's a number of line items. 250, we went through it line by line, and thank you to Ms. Bowen about that last week. And I'm trying to think that, and sorry, I didn't bring that. I flagged those 2 items, but I thought there was another item that we were looking at, and I don't know if it's around the director's communication.
Director Morrison is nodding his head.
Okay.
Can you clarify on that one?
Well, no, that wasn't the item I was seeking clarification on from staff.
A minute then.
So I guess I'm having a sense that I'd like to sharpen the pencil, pull out Director McClinton's eraser on this topic, and on this one. I'm wondering if that's, that we could just take a 5-minute recess and maybe pull that document up and do that.
Sure, I don't see why not. Anybody have any objections to that? No? Can we do that now, or shall we? We can either do that, come back, we'll finish off the bits here and then come back at the end of this particular section. Would that be okay? Or would you like to do it now? Let's do it now. Let's do it now. Take a till 1 o'clock. Thank you.
You may want to go back to Director
Yeah, straight back, yeah. Thank you very much. So we're live again now. I'm going to go straight back to Director Martman and then go to Director Acton, who also has a hand up. Director Martman.
Thank you. And before I go to amendment, I just would like to draw the committee's attention to the line item called community information, of which we're budgeting proposed 54,000. Our actual expenditures are significantly less of than that. So maybe staff could just refresh our memory on that line item and why the suggestion, or why for 54,000. Well, our actual expenditures in the last couple of years have actually been about 3. Thank you.
Bowen, go ahead.
Through the chair to Director Martman. From what I understand from the notes, that this was a board decision to set it at that level. So
that particular one could be reduced if necessary, correct? Director Martman, are you still on? Director Morrison. And no, first, sorry, I'm Director Acton. You had your hand up first. Would you like to go ahead?
Sure, thank you. I wanted some refresher on, no, I go back to this, on what the $80,000 from transfer reserve was, and the surplus line item of 151,000. And first, I'd also like to say that I'm glad that staff is looking at the GIS not being in this budget, because to me, this is our budget of how we do a good job as an electoral area director. And we are cutting everything off of here so that we can, this is the wrong area to be cutting right now. These are things that help us do our job. And I will not support any reduction in travel, and neither for ourselves nor for staff. We've heard from staff that, you know, there's been low opportunities in training and conferences, and those types of things really renew your energy as a staff member and as a director, and really open your eye to what's going on in other areas, creates relationships that can help you. And we are operating at such a low budget already. The community information budget, for clarity, is a budget that you can use to educate your community on what's happening at the CVRD. It wasn't used a lot last year because it was an election year. A lot of expenses were not approved for that. But years before that, it's for renting. Even when I have a town hall, it pays for renting the community center. It pays for putting a notice out to all the residents that we're doing this big initiative. So I would be really careful of these budgets because we're already so limited. And I would also like to put forward our remuneration as really important here. The remuneration, I don't know if you've seen the role of an electoral area director. It's 2 pages long. We're expected to be available 9 to 5, evenings and weekends, and work full time sometimes. Does everybody know how much we get paid for being an electoral area director? $13,000 a year. The other 17,000 is for our board work. So my community has no problem with a more reasonable remuneration so that we can start to attract those who can afford to do this role. So we're taking away the affordability of doing this role, and we're also taking away the ability to provide so we're not attracting the skill set, and
Yeah,
we're also
Director
not
Acton,
giving the
I'm
tools.
going to stop you there if I
So-
can, please, because
Okay,
as
so
you know, we
first,
formed a special committee to talk about remuneration, and that will come up then. I appreciate
no,
your
because I
views.
would like to, I'm gonna actually have a motion to increase it today. So even whatever happens, we can discuss it late. That committee was not mostly for remuneration. It was mostly for the code of conduct.
Okay.
So this has been brought forward to this board to be decided today. So I just gonna, so I'll go back to my first questions, what the $80,000 is and 151,000. And I'd like to know what's in the reserves and if there's any items that we could use from reserve funds, such as upgrading computers, since those are a one-time thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bowen, I see you up there again.
Through the chair to Director Acton, the 80,000 is, it was a board-approved item to be towards the GIS ortho photo. So this is a revolving every year, and then every 3 years they have to go to contract to update it. So this has been decided, it's been happening for a couple of years already, and a bit of it gets paid by 100 as well towards the ortho photo. So that's what that 80,000 is for. The 151 is, we carry forward some of your surplus that happened in 2022 at the time that we did this budget. So that's what that is. So it's carried over from surplus from this year, not operating reserves, it's surplus.
Follow up, Director Acton. I have Director Morrison on the list as well.
Okay, so it's surplus, it's not requisition. And so what is it applied to, the surplus?
Through the chair to Director Acton, we put that surplus in so that you could have your requisition lowered. Because if that wasn't in there, your requisition would have to be increased by 150,000. And your current, sitting at the end for, with the committed values for 2022, you're at 191,531 in your, so 191,000 is sitting in your operating reserves.
Okay, Director Acton, are you finished for the time being? I'll go to Director Morrison, then come back to you if necessary. Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm not going to echo what Director Acton said. Those were comments that I think we might want to take to heart, because this is our council budget, and this is our opportunity to ensure that there's adequate training and the compensation bit as well. I won't belabor the fact that I was under the impression that there would be a remuneration component in this, and would like to see it added in as well. And just keep in mind that if we're cutting this budget this year, and this is essentially core, it's going to have to go up at some point in a subsequent year. So I'm encouraging all of us to stand pat in areas where we can, and not cut this too close to the quick, because we will regret it in years coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Morrison. Director Martman, I think you need to bring forward a motion as well first.
Sure. I still have one question, though, going back to community information, because I'm hearing one thing from Director Acton, and I do listen carefully to others, Director Morrison as well. And the consequence of cutting this is what? Because I'm not really sure where I've seen this being used in my area. Maybe I've missed something. So does anybody have any input on what community information would have spent, is planning to spend for, well, even I'll say for my electoral area? Well, I'm looking for, or what someone else has spent. Like, I'm looking for information on this, because at this point, I would say, if anybody has information like that, I'd like to have it shared, please.
Good question. And you won't have that, will you, Ms. Bowen? It's going to, as far as I understand it, it's purely an individual director's decision as to what they spend out of that budget there. Ms. Sherroff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was some board-directed expenditures towards communications around the fireworks bylaw and permitting for that earlier last year or late last year. So that did in part come from this budget because it was board-directed and it wasn't otherwise funded. So that was one example. And then in addition to that, the expenditures are attributed to, generally to directors holding town hall meetings. So the costs associated with holding those meetings.
So it's a budget which has rarely been overspent or come close to the amount that has been allocated. Is that a correct way of putting it? Nobody knows, no. Director, let's see, Director Segal, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the numbers here. Thank you, Chair. And so I see in 2020, it was, 3,300. In 2021, it was 1,300. And then last year was 95,000. And so I understand the confusion going around in the room. I think it's important to have this money for community information, or if I'm just like reading this wrong, clarify for me. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. And Ms. Bowen, she's got a red light on. Oh, good.
Through the chair to Director Segal. So this, the 95 is the budget. So the budget was always been like a 54, but then there was some surplus, and it was, because I think for it being an election year last year, that's why the addition for the budget went up. But as you can see, like there's actuals for the previous years is showing that, yeah, it was quite, not a lot used, but again, it's decision of the board of what they want to do with that.
Yeah, those were the COVID years, I think, right, yeah. And it's good to see that the COVID years are kind of being pushed to one side and moving on. But, yeah, they were low things. So this is something which I think, rightly so, Director Martman has brought up here. Do we really need to put this amount of money into this particularly? And we will build up again. Director Morrison.
So, as being maybe a bit of a dinosaur in the group, I've used this function before for the purchase and installation of bulletin boards. And they are an effective tool. They're at community halls and post office. They're an effective tool for the director to get messages out. But let's face it, that's some old technology. And we have had discussions, and we had Mr. Schumacher up here earlier talking about some corporate standards and ability for not only the organization, but for directors to be able to better engage in our communities. And better engaging in our communities, I would think, would probably be of a digital nature. And whether it's tapping into a portion of what might be a CVRD website or other initiatives that we may deem would be good for us to reach out to our communities. Now, as I said, I did bulletin boards a few years ago. I think I'd like to do something a little bit more technologically savvy and have the ability to reach out to community members, and I don't think that is going to come cheap. So I think this is another one of those things that, yes, COVID happened and election, and we were advised that it wouldn't be smart to be spending a whole bunch of money in an election year on as an individual director. So I think a lot of people just sort of self-censored and didn't use the fund that year. So if we're going to start to engage in different fashions and maybe online and on the internet, we may want to make sure that we've got the ability to do some level. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Morrison. Director Martman.
So I'd like to make a motion to the effect that two of the line items be impacted. So the motion would state that I move the community information line item be reduced by 50%. to 27,000, and that the director's FCM expenditures be adjusted to reflect 3 directors going, plus I think the chair, whatever the agreement was before, and that those numbers be, and that this be also subject to the appropriate, or I think Patrick had the wording, the GIS allocation being brought back to our satisfaction.
Through the chair to Director Martman, the GIS allocation is done, the allocation, so if you change that, that affects a whole bunch of other budgets in the background. It's not just like it's, because then it will affect general government, which then in turn will affect other ones, which will in turn, ones that, so allocations are already done. And then the other budgets are based on having those allocations and trying to keep their budgets at a certain level.
Then we should be satisfied when it comes back, right?
There's,
I think I hear you saying, I think the idea is that I don't want to be going forward to approve something. Maybe I have a seconder and I can speak to why.
Yeah, I think Mr. Robbins has something to say first.
I would just, I think that there was a question that was arisen and you were looking at where the 80-20 came from, and I believe that was, Director Martman was just trying to get a basis of that allocation and how it was. And moving to approve it, subject to just getting an understanding of that 80-20 split, not necessarily changing it. Is that correct?
Yes.
through
Is
the
that,
chair.
in that case, is that possible for?
Through the chair to Director Martman, that do not know if I'd be able to have that information by tomorrow. That's the only thing. Like, we could look at for the 2024 budget, but to have that at my fingertips, like I said, I was trying to find it from last week and just not having that luck.
So Director Martman, you've made a couple of motions there, right?
You just made a motion. Do you have a seconder?
Seconder, okay, yeah, seconded by Director McClinton. Go ahead. Any comments?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm still on. Yeah, I think when you struggle, when you look at any numbers on any budget and you're trying to, and some of them are allocation and you're saying, okay, that's not, this is not the focus is on the change allocation, but really trying to understand a number that large and seeing that it's a substantial part of this function is really what I'm trying to get to, you know, and, but what you're saying is that we don't necessarily going to get that information.
Miss Bowen, Miss Sheriff has her hand up and she might like to jump in on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to confirm that the directors understand that the budget for 250 is electoral area services. So services attributable to all electoral areas, not just to electoral area directors. So I think if you think about it that way, then you can understand why there's such a big chunk of money that's being allocated to GIS. So if that's 80% of the GIS work, then that's 80% of GIS work that's being done for electoral areas, right? In addition to all of the director expenses, which are also in this budget. Does that help?
And that means it's being allocated to planning, to land use services,
That's
to
correct.
parkland, everything else, yep. Does that help any, Ben? Good, thank you very much. Director Abbott.
Thank you, Chair. That is not the same with communications? No. In other words, we haven't spent anywhere near $54,000. 27,000 seems reasonable. And as an aside, it sure would have been nice to see what we actually spent as at December 31st. But I know we're only 10 days into January. So we've got an amended budget and we've got a new budget for 2023. It's a little hard to square the numbers. But when Ms. Charles says that this isn't just our piggy bank, this is for all electoral services, could the communications component be utilized by more than just newsletters, community meetings, but bulletin boards, and I don't dissuade anybody using older technology. A lot of people in my community, while they're on Facebook, they appreciate a letter in the mail. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and I'm going to say at this point, just before I'll come straight back, you have no idea how useful it is to have this man by the side of you, especially if you're a novice chairperson. Thank you, Patrick. Go ahead, Director McClinton.
Again, going through this the first time, it's incredibly challenging to, know if you're making the right decision. But I would just refer us back to our initial instincts that if we stay the course, we're staring down 15% increase. This seems like a place where is it something we want to do? Absolutely not. Do I even fully know what the implications are going to be for myself and the communications I have? I have my first open house coming at the end of the month. But this seems like a reasonable thing to take a look at, would be my comment.
Thank you, Director McClinton. And one of the things, my mantra has always been look at the data, make a decision, live with the consequences, and that's exactly what we have to do right here. So I'm going to call the question. It's been moved and seconded, has it? It has. So all those in favour? Any opposed? Director Morrison, Director Deck, and Director Acton. So that passes. And carries? That motion carries. That was, that was 12. So we now move on to 13, animal control, 23, function 3.
No, we were just voting on Ben's motion.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So they was just just
Yeah,
his,
okay,
and then you're going back to that function as amended.
okay. My apologies. Going back to that motion as amended. Moved and seconded. Moved by, no?
Wait, what are we, excuse me, sorry, what are we voting on now? I think that was just direction to staff to change the budget. I have a
Okay.
separate motion. I don't want to move on to the next item
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
Is that correct?
That's fine. Keep moving on. Function 250.
Function 250, carry on. So,
Director Acton has a question. Has a
go ahead then, Director Acton, you have your hand up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I would like to ask that staff increase the director's regular pay by $100,000 for that line item, please.
Say that again, $100,000?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, the 9 directors, okay.
Yes. And happy to speak to it or share, our role description and everything if anyone needs it later.
that was a motion. I believe it was seconded.
Seconded by Director Morrison, and any comments, please? Discussion. Director McClinton.
So I asked to be on the committee to discuss this, and, perhaps somewhat ironically, I would be leaning towards agreeing with you, Director Acton, but for me, the discussion, the thing that even before I decided to run, and I looked at the remuneration, it just seemed like an extremely odd number to me. It didn't make any sense for the type of role. And, for me, I think that remuneration should reflect the type of people that we want sitting at this table. And, I guess I don't know if this is the time to discuss this. I was hoping to do it in committee, but, I would want to know from my fellow directors, what type of people should be sitting at this table? Is it only people that are retired? Is it only people that live in a household with a second income? Who should be able to step forward into this role? And so that was a question I was hoping to have answered before I voted on this. I know how I personally feel. I think that the remuneration severely limits the type of people that might step forward into this position. So that's sort of my take on it. I don't know how to get that addressed.
Thank you, Director McClinton. I'm going to insert myself in this particular place here. I have no objections to a rise in remuneration, but something of this magnitude, which represents 33% on the amount that we get at the moment, is untenable. No other company or organization in Canada, as far as I know, for at least 20 years, has awarded themselves a rise of 33%. And regardless of the pros and cons, I will vote for a rise as long as it is reasonable and it is in line with what everybody else in this country has been awarded. But in this particular case, I'll come out strictly against the kind of numbers that we're talking about here. Who's next, please? Next, please. Director Martman.
So, maybe to answer Director McClinton's question, I think exactly who's sitting at this table, who I would want to be here. I look at the new members that are on this board, and I say, yeah, we've got good people here. And so, did the remuneration play a factor in that? And I would say, well, they're sitting here, and they weren't expecting to have more money to be paid to them. And so I do look for evidence on decision-making. And one of the things that I hear over that we will have different people, or I don't know, better people or more opportunities for people if you increase the amount that you're going to pay them. And I struggle with that because I don't see the evidence for it. I don't think this board is any stronger or weaker than the Regional District of Nanaimo. It pays considerably more than us. I don't think that this board lacks capacity to make decisions, and so I'm not sure if you can link it to dollars that you receive. I think that people may drop out over time because it's hard to have continuity if dollars are playing a factor in your decision making. But I also have to put this into context of the times, and I think that we have to demonstrate leadership in a time when we are going to be cutting budgets. And the leadership starts here, and I find it very awkward to say that, you know, is this role worth more? Definitely. The decisions you make at this board, the things you have to evaluate require considerable of your time, attention, research, but at the same time, the leadership part of it for me is the magnitude that I want to focus on, because I seek we will be making difficult decisions over the next week, months, and I want people to be able to say, yeah, we will lead by example. And so that's why I would be not voting in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Martman. And who was next? Director Segal, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I will support this motion. When we talk about the people that are around this table, I see a lot of privilege. There's a lot of privilege related to either having a pension or an income source already there, or a partner that's willing to take on the majority of the financial strain, support with childcare. The living wage for Cowichan Valley is $23.53, which works out to $45,000 a year. So I know there can be an argument around if this is a full-time job or not. I know for me, entering this, I thought it was only going to be 20 hours a week, but I've certainly had to step back from my own nutrition consulting business, my volunteer responsibilities. I'm outsourcing childcare. There's our regular meetings, plus prep, committees, relationships with our community groups, individuals, First Nations, social media, you know, the amount of we would like to communicate with our constituents. It's a lot of time, and I think for this job to be done well, it's a full-time job. I think we should bring the salary in alignment with the living wage and other elected officials in different areas. And just as a last note, you know, when elected positions are paid poorly, they're only ever available to privileged people. And there's privileged people that are governing in a way that may not represent the community as a whole. I think we should pay elected positions a living wage and make politics accessible to all. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Segal. Anybody else? Any more discussion? Director Dick.
I'm on. I just wanted to echo Director Segal's comments and say that this board should look like the community we serve and the wider community that we serve. So there are many faces missing at this table. But it also should include people who have a desire to serve. That is a luxury for sure. And so you're right about, So I agree with Director Segal that we need to respect those that don't have enough money to give what they wish they could to the community. But I seek diversity here, and if that's what it takes, then I would agree to the living wage increase.
Thank you, Director Dick. So I think Director Morrison, go ahead.
Thank you. Regardless of whether or not or how this amount didn't get into core, it was clear from the intent of individuals that were at the table when we asked that it be included in core that we weren't going to re-debate the entire issue. I think that's why the committee's been struck. We'll probably look at the municipal directors as well. We've got the other items that we have to do, but the living wage, I think, is a key component to this. It went up significantly in our region, and I'm supportive of including this as a budget matter, and we will have a full debate at the board for sure. I'll support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Morrison. Director Dick, could you turn your microphone off, please? Thank you. Okay, I think we've had a fairly comprehensive discussion, so I'm going to call the question on the motion brought forward by Director Acton. All those in favour? She did. Yeah.
Sorry,
Sure.
could you read the motion, please?
Can you read the motion again?
The motion was to add $100,000 to electoral area directors' remuneration.
Overall.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, 11.
Directors, yes.
Are you okay now, Director Dick? Yes. Okay, let me call the question again, then we had clarification. All those in favour? And those opposed? Director Markman and Director Wilson opposed. Motion carries. And are there any other further ones on this one? Any further ones on the 250? Okay, Director Acton, go ahead. I think you're muted.
Sorry. The operating, I would like to move $8,000 from the operating reserve to the line item for any computer upgrades, since it's a one-time purchase, and there will be some credit put back into that line item as directors trade out their laptops.
I think that one was already taken care of, was it not, CAO? No?
Sorry, yes, through the chair. We have looked into the equipment that we would need to purchase, and so per director, I believe the number was 2,800 for a full swap out. And and then the existing equipment that we have can be repurposed to other divisions. But so if budgeting for that amount, as the director has suggested, would not be a full switch out. You'd be a number of directors would be eligible, and then you could potentially budget in a following year to switch out more units if you wish.
Okay, so $8,000, it would not be enough, is that correct?
Not for all the directors, no.
Okay, so, I'll say $20,000 from reserves be put in that line item. Because obviously not everyone is trading out their laptop and, it's a one-time thing and there will be credit from the ones that are allocated to other divisions.
Okay, so that's your
Thank you.
motion that $20,000 be moved from reserves into this function, is that correct? Okay, do I have a seconder? Seconded by Director Morrison. Discussion. Director Markman?
Sorry, I just not, I came with my pencil and my eraser today, and I just see that we aren't doing that at all. And so, you know, and we can make do. And I just feel that we aren't making do. So I just can't see voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Markman. Director Segal?
Thank you, Chair. So I recognize this is a transfer from operational reserve, so it wouldn't impact requisition. But I don't know, we did get a brand new computer and a brand new phone, and the phone options are totally top of the line. I understand that it's not, you know, a MacBook, but I think we all also have other computers at home, and we're really only navigating Outlook, whether you like that software or not, and the internet. So I agree with Ben. With Director Martman. I don't personally see the value in changing out our existing hardware.
Thank you, Director Segal, and thank you, Director Markman. I'm in total agreement with what you said there. What I've got here is totally adequate with what I've got. I think Director McClinton, did you want to say something? I've got Director Morrison on the list as well. Director Morrison, go ahead.
Thank you, and I'm not happy with the gear. I got spent money out of my family's budget to get a new monitor. This doesn't suit my needs, and yet I'll probably stick with it because there's a need to show that we're trying to be frugal. It's okay equipment. I think we could have done better, and lessons to staff for the next time. Maybe talk to the people that are going to use it in advance of making the purchase. Thank you.
Thank you, Director McClinton.
More of a personal comment than anything. I mean, we're here to get as much work done as quickly as possible. We're required to use these computers. I mean, this is an efficiency thing where, for me anyways, where we're going to be able to talk and answer and get more stuff done. So, I mean, I can definitely make do. I'm thinking about efficiencies moving forward. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Any more comments, any more discussion on this particular one? No? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favour? All those opposed? Opposed, Director, keep your hands up please. Director Deck, Director Markman, Director Wilson, Director Segal, and Director Abbott. Motion fails. Any further discussion on this one? On 250? Nope, that motion fails, and we're going ahead now. We've finished for 250.
Do you want to look for a motion to approve 250 with those amendments?
Okay. Oh.
To the chair, to the board, I just want to make sure that we have the right numbers for this, because so we can get it in. So we're looking to increase salaries 100,000. We're going to decrease the community information by 50% by 2,700 or 27,000, and then only 3 people to the FCM conference and those things. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. That's great. Does 3 plus the chair? Yeah. Do we want a 5-minute break for any reason? We do. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. Come back at 1:45, please. Buffering. Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Okay, we're back live again, and there was me thinking this is going to be a nice, easy day today. So we're going to go back to 250 again because we haven't actually passed a resolution on as amended. So I'm going to ask for a motion, or did we already do the motion to?
I don't believe so, Mr.
No.
Chair.
The motion will be that we pass function 250 as amended. Do I have a? I do. Director McClinton, and seconded by Director Segal. So moved and seconded. All those in favour? Oh, first of all, any discussion, any further discussion on this? Seeing none. All those in favour? Opposed, if any? Director Martman is opposed. And so that carries.
Function 310, animal control, next.
Okay, animal control. Anything on this? Does anybody want this pulled, or can we discuss or pass it? Anybody?
So moved.
Director Segal. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I have a general question about 13 through 16. Can I ask? It kind of applies to all of those functions. Is that okay, or is that like outside of procedure?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so my question is with regards to their operational reserves. All of these functions have fairly sizable reserves, either at, close to, or above that 4-month mark. And so I guess I'm just looking for either clarity from staff, or if this is something that we can look at deeper as to, are we putting too much into operational reserves? These are, this is requisition money from years previous that was designated to go towards services that the community wants. But then when they just end up in this excessive operational reserve, it makes it really easy to take supplementals and nice to haves, but they're really designed to be for the actual service they're designated to. And it's a lot of money when you look at all the operating reserves for each function, and that's a lot of taxpayer dollars just kind of sitting there. And so, I mean, this is my first year understanding the operational reserve policy. I don't want to unfairly use them to requisition that we're going to pay for in future years. And I understand being fiscally responsible and the idea behind the policy, but it just, to me, seems like a lot of money hanging out there that's going to be used for extra nice things, that when the community, I think, really just wants it to be used for the service they are desiring. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Segal. And Ms. Bowen, you're up there again.
Through the chair to Director Segal. So I'll just answer on kind of the policy of the operating reserves. So currently, we've been a bit behind because of staff shortages. Usually what we do, once they hit over their maximum of the 4-month, we move that over into capital reserves to be used to buy future capital and start saving for the capital asset management if they need new vehicles and stuff like that. So that's where it goes to. So yes, they're high right now, but we would be moving money over into capital reserves.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for the capital reserves, do we also have like a min-max structure? No.
To the chair to Director Segal, capital reserves are only used strictly to buy capital assets. There is no min, no max on holding that, and it cannot be used for operational needs of running the business day to day. They're used to fix buildings and our water sewer system, buy new vehicles, stuff at the rec centers, things like that, new roofs. That's where that capital reserve comes in handy, so that if something, you put money away for that, so that when you go to have to replace that, you have that little bit of reserve set aside, and you're not having to tax for it in the year that you need it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. 310 through 16. 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 310 thro
Absolutely, go ahead.
Sorry, just one additional comment to follow up on Ms. Bowen's statement. So we are in the midst of implementing an asset management regime in the organization. And when fully implemented, that part of that would be to provide some clarity around where those capital reserves need to be for healthy asset management. So we are very actively in the middle of that and doing a ton of really great work. But when that's fully implemented, you would have very good information and answers to help you guide decision-making on that, setting those reserves. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I see the point that Director Segal is trying to make here. If we've got all this money in capital reserves and capital, the other one, then why should we be requisitioning more as we are doing here? Can we not make better use is that the point you're trying to make? Yeah. Better use of the money that we've got held in reserve and keep the requisitions down as opposed to the nice things. Does that more or less sum up? Good.
Through the chair to the board, to remember that we are just coming out of COVID too. So we had a couple of years of budgets where there were extra. We've budgeted for staff that didn't materialize, didn't happen. So there was a couple things that factored into why some of these reserves are higher than normal. And I know that they're addressing some of that in the budgets coming forward.
Director Morrison, go ahead.
And through to staff, and I sort of building on what Director Segal has commented on. So yes, I support asset management. It's very important. We have, as society, we've not done a good job on that front. But it also begs the question, we've come through COVID with requisition dollars that are surplus, that are, you know, if we're hitting our operation reserve maxes, then converted into capital, ought they not be held to ensure that the operational deficiencies that we may be experiencing now be held to pay for those, because they were literally generated out of the COVID and the underspending in an operational nature. So that's kind of a in-depth rhetorical question, but you know, I'm reluctant to say that we should be converting anything that's above and beyond our max into capital reserves. I would rather see the asset management be taxed specifically for capital for the asset management program as a separate entity and amount. So rhetorical question, probably divergent from what we should be discussing here today, but I think this year we should be using some operational reserves to cushion the blow for our taxpayers.
Director McClinton.
Through the chair. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think these are the perfect functions, if I'm using that right, I mean, clearly animal control has gone down, but I mean, I think I might be ready to make my first motion. I mean, I would look to the board, are these the ones, if they've got 4 months in there, should we be looking to decrease them by 10 or 15%, right? Is that? And then,
Yep, go ahead, Ms. Bone.
Through the chair to Director McClinton, you do have, so if you're using operating reserves to fund an operating service that is happening every single year, so you're going to dip down your requisition this year, then when those reserves are gone, that service is still there, you are going to spike back up. So yeah, you're dropping it down to get a lower one this year, but then you'll spike it and then end up with another 10% increase in 2 years down the road.
to follow up, just trying to strike that balance, like if we're at the max, right, and maybe a little bit over, what is that percentage we could reasonably go to where, you know, maybe at the end of the year we end up with 3 months reserve or 2.5? You know what I'm getting at?
Through the chair to Director McClinton, I'd have to do a little bit of work on that to see where that would sit. If you could buy computers, those are one-time options, buying vehicles, one-time options, they have a little bit of maintenance going forward on those, but nothing like if you're trying to fund a person.
Yeah.
Because then you have those big spikes happening. And we are coming out of that from
Yep.
the 2022 budget into the 2023
Gotcha.
budget with that.
Director Martin, I think there's,
I think it's just a question to staff. As you move, it's like a shell game in some ways. The money is here to here to here. As you move money into operational reserves, it's because we didn't spend it in the current year, and it moves into operation. And then if it goes beyond a certain policy amount, it moves into capital. Does the flexibility of use change as you move it from one to the other?
So once it moves into, through the chair to Director Martin, once you've moved it into capital, then the nature of the product that you're purchasing has to be capital in nature. So like vehicles, working on buildings and stuff. So once it's in the capital, it can only be used for capital projects.
And sorry?
She's-
Yeah, because I had and a follow-up question to that is, are you also limited in terms of the amounts that you can use at any one time of the capital?
Through the chair to Director Martin, to what the balance is in your capital reserve.
Is
You
there a
do not,
minimum?
you do not have to hold a minimum in your capital reserves.
No, but is there a minimum that you can spend at any one time? You can draw any little amount you want, okay.
Yeah, we have like, some of the water and sewer systems, depending, they'll draw little amounts. So yeah, no, there is no minimum or maximum amount of what you have to keep into it or what you would spend at the time. And then again, as Barb was going to say, is that you have to have a supplemental. That's what the things are happening tomorrow, is you have to have a supplemental request in order to have money come out of your capital reserve or anything that's over and above the normal core. Just breathe. Operational reserves, again, if it's outside of core, then you discuss here to decide whether you're going to include it or not. And then there would be, we also use operating reserves. You'll see in some of the supplementals tomorrow, there are stuff that has been chosen to use operating reserves to cover some of the cost and keep it out of the requisition. That we had some of those at the Couch and Light Commission that we dealt with, so.
okay, Director Acton, sorry, Ms. Mohan.
Sorry, thank you. Through the chair, just one more thing to add, which is that during the year, if we have to make use of operational reserves that haven't been identified in the budget process, generally it's a budget amendment process. So staff will come forward with a report and a recommendation to use the reserves, and you amend the budget at that time. So that's how it's used during the year, the operational reserve part of it.
Okay, Director Acton.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. My understanding is there's no motion on the floor right now.
That's correct,
And thank you, Director Segal, for bringing this up. That is a great point that these 4 items, 310, 320, 325, and 328 have large reserve funds. I'm wondering if we could send those 3 budgets back for staff to highlight which items could be funded through the reserve funds instead of requisition, and supply that information for us.
Miss Bowen, no, Miss Garrett-Jeroff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it may become a little bit more apparent tomorrow when you consider the supplemental request for EA budgets, where we are looking to use operating reserves to offset some of the costs of those. Mr. McDonald may have some commentary on his particular budgets and the use of operating reserves to offset his core budgets, which are considering today. So I defer to him.
Okay, Mr. McDonald, if you'd like, in the meantime, again, for my own information and understanding, then tomorrow when you bring forward supplementals, if I heard this correct, you will be asking the board if we can use some of the reserves for offsetting those supplementals. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. And so some of the discussion that you're having today is sort of predicated on what you decide to do tomorrow, unfortunately.
Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I've got a couple examples that would come up in these next 4, and certainly in 2 of them. So in 320, which is building, one of the things you'll see tomorrow is a supplemental for a vehicle that will be fully funded that way and suggested to fund it that way. The other one that's a difficult one is in bylaw. So you'll see coming up as in 328 that I've done a significant cut in what I put into requisition for our legal budget. But then there will be an opportunity down the road, should we get ourselves into a situation where we have an unforeseen legal situation, we would be come back with a budget amendment to try and use some of those operational reserves to do something like that. So I hope that helps understand how we could utilize those funds.
Yeah, and I think this leads back again to one of the phrases that Director Segal uses with the new truck, etc. Is this, again, I'm sorry to ask the question, but I've got to, is this an absolute necessity or is it a nice thing to have?
Through Mr. Are you talking about the one for building? Yeah. Oh no, it's a vehicle that needs to be retired, and it's gone way over budget this year just on the repairs I've done on it.
Okay, thank you.
If I could add one other comment to that, these next 4 that you're going to look at too are also reliant on permit fees. These are they're extremely unpredictable. So building is the one example I'd like to use in that one because I've been here long enough to see the cycles. And I was sitting here, I think, 4 years ago, and we were almost $200,000 short on what we thought we were going to bring in. Just can't predict what's going to happen. This year was kind of the opposite. But you're going to just keep seeing this trend, so very hard to almost dog chasing its tail.
That's good. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. And when any more comments or discussion on these 4? Director Segal did bring these forward as a block of 4 because they were interrelated. So we're now back then to function 310.
I had a follow-up to my comments. So
Carry on.
I understand that there's supplementals tomorrow, but these are really large reserve funds. So I guess, generally in the past, we would have had like a presentation on the budget far in advance so that anything, all the supplementals, are not a surprise. And we had a closer look at each budget and what was happening in that division. So, I can't remember off the top of my head, like if there's, a look to be, spend any other items in the building inspection budget or, that could be used with this. I'm hearing the pushback, but, these are quite large compared to they're almost a year's worth of, or more, some of them, of reserve funds. So, anyway, this feels like we're late in the game to be even doing those types of things.
Yeah, thank you, Director Acton. Director McClinton.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to make a motion with the knowledge, knowing that if we get into a situation where we need to amend the budgets down the road, we can. I move that we reduce these budgets by 10%, the operating budgets.
There is a motion on the floor to reduce the operating reserves.
No, the operating budget.
But the budget by 10%.
Right, if we've got 4 months in each.
And increase reserves by, the use of reserves by 10%?
No, sorry. Help me out here. It's my first motion. To reduce the operating budget by 10%, knowing that we can go into the reserve budgets if needed. No? That doesn't make sense? Sorry, the requisition, thank you. The requisition, thank you. That's what I meant to say. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, reduce the requisition by 10%.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is that we reduce, and this is for all 4, or do we have to take each one in turn here? Do it as a block? Okay, Ms. Bowen, go.
Through the chair to Director McClinton, we could look at that to see and then let you know what the consequence could be because you are now dropping it 10% this year. You use up those funds. And then because the mins and maxes are based on 2021 expenses, when we go to do the 2024 budget, the mins and maxes will be based on the 2022 expenses. So those mins and maxes could be a lot higher because now we're on a full year of everything happening after COVID. So that minimum, especially for, I think it's 328 that we just increased, their maximum can be set to 500,000. So they have to have 500,000 in there. So right now with the motion that went to the board in December to change that policy, there's only 400,000 that's left in that one now, not the 900, because they have to leave 500,000 that needs to be available for them to use stuff.
Let me ask a question then, follow up to the staff. I'm looking to, we have, our reserve funds are full to 4 months, and I'm looking for a reasonable number that we can reduce the requisition. Can you provide any guidance on that?
Through the chair to Director McClinton, I'd have to go up and
Okay.
do some calculations on that, but just realize that whatever percentage you drop it by this year, and those operating reserves are not there next year, you have to increase that budget by that year just to bring it back up to the level that it's at right now to provide the current services that are required to run that service.
It's complicated, isn't it? Yeah, and that's, I think, probably one of the drawbacks, and Mike, be careful, of the regional district and the functions that we have here. We don't have the ability to change from one budget into the next and move money around very easily, which I wish we did. Did I get that one right? Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair to the board, yes. So you can't use funds from 310 in the operating reserve to fund anything in 328. It has to, each line has to stay separate. They can't share. Those are the only, because it depends on who pays into those services. Those are the ones that get that, that get use of that service. So that's what Director was
So
saying.
you're going to go away then, and where do we go to from here then? Because Ms. Bowen has to now go and redo some numbers. What do we do?
You can still talk about the other components in each of those functions, and we can provide some additional information with regards to the ability to do what Director McClinton does, and as early as we can, but you may still want to be going through each of the functions in their entireties to see if there's any other adjustments other than an overall, or maybe the overall adjustment was sufficient for the directors today under those functions.
Mr. McDonald, you're standing up. You're just stretching. Okay. Okay, so we are now dealing with 310 alone, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so function 310, animal control, that the motion is that we reduce that by 10%. So do we have a proposer? Do you have a seconder for that? Mr. Director Abbott, did you second? You didn't, okay. No? Okay, yeah. Director Morrison has seconded. Discussion on this particular one. Any more discussion on this one? Director Segal?
Yeah, I feel like I need more information before I can vote on that. And I don't know if that's waiting until tomorrow, and give Ms. Bowen some time to play with numbers and also to take into consideration what those supplementals are. And, you know, what the CAO spoke of with the asset management. It feels, you know, there's a lot of numbers at play that I think we should take into consideration before making this decision.
And that's interesting. Okay, so we're going to vote first of all on the motion that's on the floor. And I'm going to call the question on that before we move on any further here. So all those in favor of reducing 310 by 10%? Of course, yeah.
And I like the intent. And I think that's what we're all trying to get there and trying to figure out how to do it. And but the moving parts on this is really interesting, because if I relate it to my own home expenses, I'd be going like, hey, I got money in the savings account, I'm just going to put it in here, and then I'm just going to build those savings account back up, and I'll use it again one day. But I'm the only one that gets requisitioned. Well, my daughter maybe, no. But then I have to add in and say, well, yeah, but you're just working on 2021 numbers. We don't have your 2022 numbers. And I go like, whoa, hang on a second, I don't really know what I have in my savings at, because I don't know that. So I'd be going like, there's like Director Segal said, there are different moving parts, and I can also move money between accounts, so, you know, don't tell my wife. Or maybe I just did. And so, consequently, I think I'm just going to vote against it, not because of the intent of the motion, but because of the consequences of it, perhaps not knowing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Director Acton, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I don't understand why we can't table this until we have enough
Yeah.
information to make the
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking in terms of as well here. So let's, we have to vote on it
And
first.
we should also have the people who wrote these budgets present in order to tell us what will happen if it's
They're all here.
reduced by 10%.
Yeah. Okay, so we have to vote on this one. Okay, sorry, Director Morrison.
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest it, and maybe it's not just for 310, but the four of them, that these be referred to the beginning of tomorrow's meeting,
Okay,
and we can consider them.
and Director, hang on a second, Ms. Mohan, go ahead. And I do apologise if I'm not pronouncing the miss and the ms together here. So it is, you know what I'm saying, right? Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to go back to something we said at the beginning of the session. Director McClinton said, is this when we dig in and ask the questions and find out the information? And in fact, it is. The manager for this area is here prepared to discuss his budget, this budget, and has all, most of the information at his disposal right now to answer your questions. So this is one of the times when I suggest that you dig in now. If there are questions that the division manager can't answer because they haven't prepared, then tomorrow, then let's move it to tomorrow. But I would suggest that any of those questions that you can field to the division manager today, we do that to make the most of this time and to move you along in the process as much as we can. So.
Can I comment on my own motion? Doctor, forgive me. This is the aim of my motion. At the end of the year, I'd like to see us closer to 2 months reserves than 4 months. That's what I was trying to get to, right? And perhaps you can elaborate on my misdirection in that motion, or just, I'd just like your general comments on what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think Ms. Bowen has explained that pretty good already, that you run the risk when you do that. So if you said 10% this year, then we run the risk that a year from now that I'm coming back asking for 10%. Right. Just as a reminder too, this year it is a 21% decrease in requisition in animal control. It was 15,000 that was reduced already.
Yep.
So.
Okay. And if you're as confused as I am, and I hope you are. Yes, indeed. Let's, we got to vote on this, on the motion which is on the floor at the moment, which was to reduce the the requisition by 10% for this year. I think we've had enough discussion on that, so I'm going to call, and we had been seconded as well, so I'm going to call the question on this. All those in favour? And opposed? That motion is defeated. Do you need names on the opposition there? You do. Put your hands up for this.
We just got the numbers.
Okay. Yeah, all those opposed, put your hands up again, please. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so that one is defeated. That was for 310, or, of course. Yes.
That was an amendment to it, right?
That was an amendment.
Oh.
The function 310 to reduce.
Yeah. That failed, so we now have to vote on 310 again.
Or ask questions.
Make that motion.
Yeah.
Or if you have any other questions on 310 with the line items within 310.
Wasn't there a motion to move these to tomorrow?
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm losing control here. I'm getting tired, but there you go. Director Abbott.
Well, we've been given the privilege to ask Mr. McDonald, how do you propose getting dog licenses to go up by such a great number from 58,000 to 65?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the trend has shown over the last couple of years that more people are actually buying dog licenses. So It's been noted, like I say again, trying to predict what permit fees will be for whether it's building, planning, even soil permits is very hard. But all we can do is try and look at the last couple of years of data and then try and predict the following year. So in this case, I noticed the last couple of years, we've been higher and we've brought in more revenue. So my intent was to try and lower the requisition when we're having tough years.
You just got a new one yesterday.
Ms. Bowen's stepping up again. Go ahead.
Through the chair to the board. So just wanted to make sure that you realize that the operating reserves that you're looking at are online are for the end of December of 2022. So that does not mean that we've included, that's just for the budget. So we haven't done the 2022 year end to actually show what's gone through. This just shows what was budgeted, but there may have been more things that got amended since then that have been used. So these amounts could be a lot lower than what they actually are sitting at right now, than what they're showing on this report. So this is just a shot in time and based on a budget. So we say 929,000 for one of them, but that may not actually be what it is. So you might be basing stuff on information that at the time we just can't provide it because we're in the middle of processing all the accounts payable for year end at this time.
Director Abbott.
Through the chair, when might we know that new number?
That is a tough question. So through the chair to Director Abbott, they are working hard upstairs working with all the departments. So everybody was to have as much as they could have into us yesterday for AP. So we'll still be talking, there'll still be hydro and transit and stuff like that, that we know big invoices that won't come in till the end, towards the end of January. Then to get all those numbers in, do all the adjustments, make sure that everything's in its right buckets, then we will know exactly is happening with those reserves. Yeah.
Director Martman.
I think we're all struggling to find an answer here, and there may be people in the room that might have an answer to it, but, and I would welcome anybody to step up, but I'm wondering if we can't make sort of a blanket approach to, if, based on an if, the operating reserves are at 4 months or above, that monies can be, up to 10% of the budget can be used from that reserve, from that additional operating reserve, rather than trying to figure out what it is now. But just that's the intent of the committee, to say, we'd like to use some, but only if it's appropriate. And that appropriate would be determined that it's over the 4 months.
Through the chair to Director Martman, but then you run back into that as
Yes.
Ian said,
Yes.
that you're going to use it this year. Next year, those same expenses are still there with regards to, unless you are buying computers. So then you can up your computer this year, as Director Acton was suggesting, and then you spend it, and then next year you drop that budget back down so that it has no effect on your requisition. But if you start using operating reserves to cover expenses that are going to occur every single year, then you're going to run the risk that, you're going to dive this year, but you're just going to do that the next year.
It's complicated.
No, it is, it's not that complicated. For sure, we don't know all the ins and outs. And I think I like where your head's going. Let's cross that bridge next year when we get there. I mean, this isn't going to be easy, or tomorrow or the next day or the day after. I think we have operating reserves that are, 4 months is a big chunk of change. And, our band we want to be in is between 2 to 4 months. I think it's completely reasonable to have that, to be part of our plan for keeping the percentage that we're increasing our overall budget this year. So I would support a motion of that nature.
Yeah, I see Director Acton's hand up, and I suspect that she's going to ask if this can be tabled till tomorrow, but go ahead, Director Acton. No, go ahead.
Oops. Sorry, I had a moment, so thanks for clarifying that. No, I guess my question is, so it's a little hard at home here today, but the staff are in the room, so the person who wrote budget 310, 320, 325, or 328, are there any items in the requisition that could come from operating reserves, or have you exhausted every possible thing? Like, buying a new desk and new equipment and new whatever. So that's what I'm asking for.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I fully understand that question, what we've done is for core budget, so that, if there was a line item, and that's why we looked at the supplemental, I think that's what Director Acton is referring to, so something we could have bought. So in that case, we would put it through a supplemental and then allow us to use that operational reserve. Where it's core, that's where we're looking at requisition. And I don't know if Mr. Tippett has anything to add.
Mr. Tippett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to budget 325, community planning function, approximately, and I can't remember the exact number, just a bit over $200,000 of the draft budget is transfer from operating reserve, and that's proposed for the very reason that Director McClinton was saying, which is it represents an amount that we believe might be in excess of the 4-month reserve, and so that's built in already to the draft budget that's on the table here. Just another point about operating reserve, maybe it's kind of unique to function 325, but there's a fair chunk of money that's been set aside there that's kind of essentially money allocated to the what we call the Development Services Modernization Program, which is the acquisition of a property information management system and the associated hardware with it, which wasn't spent last year, which we need still because we have it's not a tender, but a request for proposals out right now in that very project. So even the 4 months remaining in that reserve after, saying that I took the excess and put it into the budget to reduce requisition. Not all of that is actually reserve in the sense that we know some of it's needed for that, and then possibly a couple $100,000 or thereabouts. So it's kind of hard to, I don't know, maybe every function with operating reserves has nuances like that make it hard to just have a hard and fast rule. So I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yep.
So I just want to run a hypothetical question. If we were to move forward with something like this, and then, 8 months down the road, you're stuck, it gets brought to the board, and you ask for an amendment, and, are we able to move money from somewhere else to support that? No? There's nothing that...
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just to be clear, I think only the operating reserve could be used to say do a budget amendment. Like we can't borrow money from another function. I mean, there might be other ways to raise cash, but it probably would involve short-term borrowing and other things that we probably don't want to get into.
Yeah. Director, sorry.
I just think that would fall to the if that Ben was mentioning, right? That would obviously fall outside, but.
Director, CAO.
Just a quick comment. Sorry, just a quick comment, because I recognize how difficult this is, and you're probably thinking about the impact to your residents and trying to mitigate that, of course. But I've said it to a couple directors already today. If you take a look at that average home tax impact chart, it's an excellent chart that our staff have prepared. A lot of these things that we're discussing right now are very minimal impact if you look at the average impact. So, in Area B, for instance, you're talking about bylaw enforcement going down by $2.86 on average, and animal control by 83 cents. So if you put it into context about what this means to the taxpayers, that might help you focus discussion on those things where you will have a greater impact, if that helps at all.
Sorry, I was looking through the bits and pieces here. Director Abbott.
I'll defer.
Defer. Director Martman, could you switch your mic off, please? Thank you. Sure. Of course, go ahead.
I think I'd like to move adoption or acceptance of function 310.
Seconded. Okay, any more discussion on 310? Director Acton, you have your hand up. Director Acton.
It was to a previous comment, so I can wait.
Okay. Okay, so we've moved and seconded. All those in, any further discussion? I'm not seeing any at the moment. All those in favour? Opposed, if any? I see none. That 310 is passed, and so the next one is 320, building inspection. Director Abbott.
Can we not get back to trying to vote on a block of like 320, 325, and 328?
Yeah, I don't see why we cannot. Is there any objections here to voting for the next three as a block? Director Deck. You need to press again. Red light, there you go.
I have a question about 328 that I'd like to,
Okay.
Fine.
Can we vote on 320 and 325 for those two? And if people have any questions on those two?
I so move.
Okay, and a second for voting on 320 and 325, seconder? I have. Director Segal. Any discussion on those two? No? Call the question. All in favour? 320 and 325 then, Mr. Robbins, have been. 328, I think, yeah, Director Deck, you have a question on that?
the budget is considerably down in bylaw, and I think you mentioned something about that. Can I hear that again?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, I did. I have lowered the requisite, or the amount actually for legal, because I've looked at our legal budget over the last couple of years and felt that was an area that we could lower that now because we weren't going through the kind of legal matters that we had experienced in the past. However, having that operating reserve does allow us to do a budget amendment should we discover one coming up in the next year or two.
Thank you.
So we're on 328. Do I have a mover?
I'll move.
Director Abbott, seconder. Director Deck. Any more discussion? I see none. All those in favour? Call the question. Any opposed? None opposed? That passes as well. Good. So we're now on to R2, I think, Mr. Robbins.
That's right. The reports from Finance Division with regards to the 2023 draft budgets for electoral area parks and trails.
And if possible, hang on a second, Dr. Martman. Yes?
I'd like to pull 238, please.
238. Okay, Area H. Any more with, and Director Morrison?
Yeah, I'm actually going to ask the chair's indulgence. I am having to depart in less than 30 minutes, and I was hoping I could put a number of items that are specific to electoral area F forward for consideration before my departure.
I don't see why not. Is that allowed, Mr. Robbins?
For sure.
Yep.
I don't know if that is bearing on
I wanted to pull item function 282 and 234.
Hang on. 234 and 282. Okay. Any more to be pulled there?
Area B, 232, please.
232. 232.
and the rest you may want to vote.
And red.
I'll pull mine, excuse me, sorry, just gonna get the number here.
Which one is yours? 237. 237. Okay.
And you want then to vote on the rest of the block and
Yeah.
then consider these and Director Morrison's?
Yeah. Okay. Let's vote on this block here.
We have a stamp
Oh.
question over. Sorry, I'm not using my mic as well, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the absence of Director Nicholson, I would politely suggest pulling that one because I believe she may have a motion for consideration for 235
235.
when she's back.
Okay. All right, folks. We've got.
So that leaves, Mr. Chair.
Hang on a second. We've got Director Deck.
We still have a few here.
Yeah. Okay. 239 as well.
And by my calculation, that leaves recommendations 1, 3, 6, 10, 11, 13, 14, and 15.
I agree. Okay. So on that block alone, then, with the rest of them being pulled, moved by Director Marvin, seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion? No? Call the question. All those in favour? Opposed, if any? None opposed?
And Mr. Chair, if you
Defer
turn to
Director
Mr. Morrison for
Yeah.
items that he'd like
Director
the
Morrison.
committee to look at.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think maybe in light of the fact that Director Nicholson is here, I'll drop one from the list that I was prepared to move forward. I would like to move that the 2023 draft budgets for Function 351, Missachi Lake Fire Protection, 352, Fire Protection Cowichan Lake, 357, Fire Protection Honeymoon Bay, that those budgets be approved.
Moved by Director Morrison. Do I have a seconder? Director Segal seconded. Any discussion on those?
This is under R3.
R3. No discussion. Call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? Seeing none, that's approved.
Was there anything else from Director Morrison?
Director Morrison?
That's
Any
it.
more?
That concludes it. Yep.
That's it?
And so if you want to go back, just
Yeah, let's go
back
backwards
to
then.
R2.
Yep, R2.
And we'll start from the top, which is recommendation number 2. This is Function 232, Community Parks Area B.
Yep. Director Acton.
Thank you so much. I have a new motion for the Area B parks. It's just a change in short-term borrowing that is not required at this time. So the first part of the motion is that the 2023 draft budget for Function 232 Community Parks Area B be amended by 1, decreasing requisition by $235,775, and number 2, decreasing short-term debt by $235,775. And I move that amendment.
Moved by Director Acton, seconded by Director Markman. Any discussion?
And then,
Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? All those opposed?
thank you. And now I have the full motion, Mr. Chair, that the 2023 draft budget for Function 232 Community Parks Area B as amended be approved. So moved.
And do I have a second? Director Markman, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed. That is approved as well. Thank you, Director Acton. Any more from you?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Moving to number 4, Function 234, Mr. Chair.
234.
Community Parks Area D.
Area D, that is Director Nicholson.
No, it is me.
It is you, my apologies, sorry. I was trying to help.
If I may, and I defer to Mr. Robbins, I'd like this to happen in concert with Function 234 and 282, or 282 in function, that one, this is an allocation, similar to some earlier discussions we've had. It pertains to maintaining the new boat launch in Cowichan Bay, maintaining the washrooms, which comes under the contract managed by the lawn cutting company. But there will be a reallocation because the expense is appearing in 234, so there would be before we approve a decrease in Function 234, I want to be assured that we will have an increase in Function 282. It's a wash of $7,500, $7,500 off of 234, and Function 282 would go up by $7,500. So my motion would be that the 2023 draft budget for Function 282, South Cowichan Parks, be amended by increasing requisition by $7,500 and increasing the grass cutting and maintenance by $7,500. That would be the first part of the motion.
Okay, and I understand you've already spoken with Mr. Farquhar about this one.
Mr. Farquhar has been more than helpful.
Good, that's great. So there's the motion on the floor, folks, seconded by Director Markman. And any discussion on this? Director Acton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. this function is funded by A, B, C, and D. And I see in the past, perhaps Mr. Farquhar could clarify, the past budget had a similar amount, but it was in the 15,000. And then, so now we're proposing more. Perhaps we could have some more explanation, because the original agreement was that Area D Parks Department would take care of the washrooms, and they were the ones who built it. We have never been a part of any of these decisions since the South Cowichan Parks Commission has disbanded. So this is news to me that we are suddenly paying for this. And I also checked with the previous area director of Area D, and that was the original agreement that Area D Parks would, this was their area. And to my email of that, we all have a boat launch, or we have a dog park, and Mill Bay has sorry, it's I'm kind of lost what other item, like, but we do have items that only we pay for, that all of us use, so, and that are unique to the area. So perhaps Mr. Farquhar could explain this one a little better as to why we're suddenly paying for this.
Mr. Farquhar?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you'll note in the agenda under the information items, during the preliminary budget review process for 2023 budgets with individual community parks advisory commissions, staff had met in December with the Area D Community Parks Advisory Commission to go over the draft budget summary for Cowichan Bay Community Parks, Function 234. And what is noted in there is a recommendation from them that consideration be given by the committee and the board to include an additional $7,500 in the Function 282 South Cowichan Parks function in 2023 to help offset costs for a new washroom that's been incorporated into the parking lot for the boat launch in Cowichan Bay. It's part and parcel of a joint project with utilities, because it also handles, the little building there also handles a major upgrade to the sewer system pump station facility there. So this is recognizing through the Advisory Commission that the boat launch also includes funding through South Cowichan Parks that serves a broader community than just Cowichan Bay.
Thank you, Mr. Farquhar. Director Acton?
Yeah, that's still not clear, because what about the line item that was in 20, I think it was, sorry, I don't have it right in front of me, but in the 15,000, I think for 2021, it was something like $1,500 for operation, or there was two line items, and then maintenance and grass cutting, and that was around $8,000. So is that the same? Are we, were we always paying for this, or are we just paying for it now? Because we all have something that everybody uses, and Area D Parks Department have been the ones who made the decision to get the washrooms, just like Cobble Hills Dog Park has a bathroom and no one else is paying for it. And we have a boat launch. We have two boat launches on Shawnigan Lake. And so this is I'm really shocked that this kind of just came to us now as a recommendation from Area D Parks Department. Yeah, they've discovered that it's costing them more than they intended, but that's the nature of bathrooms, and they decided to have one. And so I guess can I have some more clarity as to like what happened here and how and why we're being asked to pay for this when it's a budget that's $15,000 every single year, and it's just meant to be a little token to help out?
Mr. Farquhar?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Director Acton, as I mentioned earlier, this is a matter that has arisen through the Cowichan Bay Community Parks Advisory Commission. It's been brought forward on that premise through the director for the area for the committee's consideration.
Yeah, so I'm not going to support this. Sorry, Mr. Chair, can I go? I'm not going to support this. There's lots of items. If we want to look at the South Cowichan, that function was actually supposed to be closed. And many people have taken items out of there and they're paying for them out of their own parks budget. So, if we need to review the fairness of all the parks, we could definitely do that. But for the Parks Commission to suddenly think that, that A, B, and C, and D should be paying for this, I don't think that it's fair and to throw this onto our budget right now. I know it's not a lot of money, but once we're committed, we're in for the long haul. So, and I really don't like this kind of thing coming forward because this is putting a pressure on my relationship with the director of Area D. And I feel like I should do it just to keep good relations. But this is not proper form of trying to get certain things paid for, if we want to look at the whole thing. So I encourage, we should have if we want to have a conversation about this, it should be a proper conversation with the Parks Commission and directors and our communities, how we want to make things fair. So I'm going to be voting against this, and I hope that the other directors will follow suit and we can actually have a fair conversation about this in the future.
Mr. Chair, this is to function 282.
282, hang on. Oh, we've gone across.
In addition to function 282 of
Oh, yeah, sorry.
$7,500.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
There will be a subsequent request to reduce 234.
Okay. So we're voting on 282. It's been proposed and seconded. Director Martman.
I'm struggling. It doesn't happen often where someone seems to be left out of the loop on funding, but maybe you can clarify this for me, because it sounds like Area D is allocating money for a washroom and moving it through allocation. So Area D is providing the money. So I'm not sure where I see the implication for any other area. Maybe the director can help me, or staff.
I don't think it is exclusively Area D. In fact, Area D is paying the smallest portion. It's paid for by A, B, C, and D. And that increase will be borne, if approved, would be borne by the 4 areas proportionately, while the decrease, I suspect, I'd have to defer to Mr. Farquhar, but is coming off the entire electoral area services.
Yeah.
So, but the motion on the table that we're voting on is just about moving money from Area D to a community park. Is that, I guess, just on the motion on the table, is what I'd like to know.
It's for function 282, which is South Cowichan Parks, which is A, B, C, and D. And it's an increase to maintain the new washrooms by $7,500, adding to the $15,000, which is currently being paid by A, B, C, and D.
22 grand.
But the money, you've tied it to another motion coming up, that 7,500 is only coming from you. Only from Area D, right? Not you, Director. But
Yeah, this is getting a little bit complicated. Mr. Farquhar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Director Martman. When the draft budgets were prepared, the new washroom was under construction at the boat launch in 2022. It was identified that it would be funded to operate once opened through the Cowichan Bay Community Parks budget. So the entirety of that servicing for that washroom is currently in the draft budget for 234 budget for Cowichan Bay. Through the Community Parks Advisory Commission for Cowichan Bay, when the draft budget was reviewed with them in December, they identified that the South Cowichan Parks function continues to provide funding towards the operation of the boat launch. It's been providing funding for a number of years. And they passed the motion that you see in their minutes in the agenda today, proposing that a portion of the cost to operate that washroom, which serves the boat launch as well as the community, be considered for funding through the South Couch and Parks function. So the motions that would be before you, the first one would be to increase by $7,500 contribution, funding through function 282 to help offset those costs. And if that is supported, then the subsequent motion would reduce a similar amount in the Cowichan Bay Community Parks budget by the same amount, because currently it's in the draft budget, that's where it's covered.
Thank you, Mr. Farquhar. That makes life a lot simpler. Basically, and I do take Director Acton's point that this came up very suddenly in the last couple of days, and I didn't fully understand it until now. And I hate to say this, but I'm going to oppose this one purely because of the suddenness and the increase to the South Community Parks. Any more discussion on this one? Director Seagal.
Yeah, I also am not going to support, because I feel like there should be a South Cowichan Community Parks Commission that's consulted in this process. And I agree with Director Acton that this feels like we're getting, directors pitted against each other. When this, I think this was initially only emailed to Director Abbott, who then shared it with us, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, I don't love how it played out.
Good, thank you. Director Acton?
Thank you. And so just to kind of, I think this was mentioned, but just so it's clear. So this has come from the commission, and I'm sure everybody's commission would love to bring items forward saying like, oh, we could get some extra, somebody should help us pay for this and this and this and this. So unfortunately, that's where this has gone. It has not come from a recommendation from staff. And it's not an extra expense that the boat launch is having for just the boat launch. The original agreement was that the park, and don't forget there's a park right there too, Hackett Park, and a whole community area that uses, so that's their contribution to their community. And people, yes, people are going to use it who are not from your area. And we all have really an item that's distinct and unique to only South Cowichan, and we pay for it. So anyway, thank you for understanding and spending the time on this one.
Okay, so as far as I understand it, and Mr. Robbins will, we are talking about function 282, and the motion on the floor is from Director Abbott that it be approved.
Nope, that function 282 be increased by $7,500.
Okay.
To cover the apportionment of costs.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is that function 282 be approved, be increased by $70,500. Do we have a seconder? Yeah, I think you did.
I believe Director Martin did.
I think you did, yeah. So we've had any further discussion on this one? None? I'm going to call the question. All those in favour? All those opposed? That's defeated. And so we're going backwards again.
That moves you back to recommendation number... number 4.
Yeah.
Function 234, Community Parks Area D.
And 234, Area D. Director Abbott, that's your area.
I'm inclined not to pursue that one.
Okay, all right then. Next one is...
So is there a motion then to approve function 234 as presented? There's a motion.
I would move 234 as presented.
Director Martin has seconded. Any discussion on that one? Seeing none, or call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? No one opposed? Motion carries.
That moves you to recommendation number 5, which is a budget for function 235. That's Community Parks for Area E.
Area E, which is Director Nicholson, and she is not here.
And I would suggest that you make a motion to defer.
Defer.
I think she sent the motion to her. Oh, no, she said staff was going to provide it.
I would turn to Mr. Farquhar, Mr. Chair, if there was anything that
Hang on a second. I did get something here. Alison, today.
My apologies.
No, Two we go, okay. Area E Community Parks, number 235, and staff have prepared motions that I believe Patrick and Tracy have reviewed. You have?
Are you able to,
To
do you
share
have
that
them, do you
motion
have
with
them
us?
handy?
No, I don't.
Nope. Looking at Ms.
Mr.
Mis-
Farquhar.
Mr. Chair, I have
Sorry.
the motion, if the area director in absence is willing to allow staff to introduce it for consideration by the committee.
Okay,
So that the 2023 draft budget for Function 235, Community Parks Area E, be amended by increasing requisition by $18,246, and two, increasing transfer to capital reserves by $18,246.
okay, so moving one down and the other being made up from the capital reserves.
No, Mr. Chair, for clarity, it's increasing requisition.
Sorry, increase,
Yes.
okay, yeah.
And
For-
transferring that amount
To-
into capital
Gotcha.
reserve.
For clarity, she's wanting to keep the requisition the same in 2023 as was approved in 2023, too.
Okay.
Yes.
So moved.
So moved and seconded. Director Markman, any discussion? No discussion? All those in favor, or call the question, all those in favor? Any opposed? None. The motion carries.
You move to recommendation number 7, which is the 2023 draft budget for Function 237, Community Parks Area G.
Area G.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry,
would not this have to be approved as amended?
Oh,
my apologies. Yes, thank you.
yeah, come on.
So moved.
So moved, seconded by Director McClinton. Any discussion? Seeing none, or call the question, all those in favor? Any opposed? I see none.
That was a
Motion-
test for Mr. Farquhar, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah. Thank you, Mr. Farquhar.
That now moves you to recommendation 7, Function 237, Community Parks Area G.
Area G.
Through the chair, I do have a motion to amend. First, just a point of clarification, I'd like to ask Mr. Farquhar, through the chair, the gas tax money, it's called something different now, that was allocated for Princess Diana Park, that is still not allocated, or it will be allocated with this budget to Princess Diana?
Mr. Chair, through to Director McClinton, all the gas tax funds approved in previous year's budgets that have not been expended still remain in play.
Thank you.
So do you have a?
I do, and yeah, I was gonna get you to do it, but I messed my first ever motion up so much, so I'm gonna give it a go here. I'm gonna read verbatim what you emailed me.
Mr. Chair, I may suggest that this is for tomorrow's allocations, not for today's budget.
Yeah,
Okay, so we could table
Defer.
this one until tomorrow?
yeah.
Yeah, so the motion on the floor then is to table this until tomorrow.
Sorry, no.
No, it's to approve, and I think that your motion is with regards to the business tomorrow. Is that correct?
It
Oh,
is
Supplementals.
Supplementals.
Okay, so you
Okay.
can make a motion then to approve Function 237 as presented?
Motion to
Today?
approve 237 as presented today.
Okay, and then you have a second.
Second, Director Markman, wonderful. Okay, any more discussion on this one? Seeing none, call the question, all those in favor? All those opposed? None.
That moves you to recommendation number 8, which is the 2023 draft budget for Function 238.
Area
That's Community
H.
Parks Area H.
Yep.
So I would just ask for money, but I would tell you a little reason why. We're gonna partly pave a parking lot. It came through the Parks Advisory Commission that we have this little apron on and off of our parking lot at Yellow Point Park that always has potholes. And we also have runoff going across the road, so we're gonna be using a little bit of money, and we had thought it would be 7,500, but now it's 10,000, so we're hoping that'll be enough. So the motion is that the 2023 draft budget for Function 238, Community Parks Area H, be amended by 1, increasing transfer from operating reserves by $10,000, and 2, increasing minor capital by $10,000.
There's the motion on the floor, seconded by Director Abbott. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed. That one is approved as well.
And
Mr.
since
Robbins?
that passed, that the 2023 draft budget for Function 238 Community Parks Area H be amended as approved.
As approved.
Approve as amended.
And approved as amended. Hey, that's right.
Seconded by Director McClinton. And any discussion on that one? Nope. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed. Direct, and that passes, Mr. Robbins, and that's approved.
Moving to item number 9, draft budget for Function 239, Community Parks Area I.
Area I. Director Deck.
Hi, this question is for Mr. Farquhar. Brian, I guess I'm asking why was there an environmental assessment done on the pocket beaches? Was there a concern initially? That's
Mr. Farquhar.
Mr. Chair, through to Director Deck.
on Stoker Park.
Stoker Park, this is associated with previously approved gas tax funds to look at establishing some pocket public beach areas, similar to what was done at mile 77. So the environmental assessment review is something that is part and parcel with any project of this nature that we undertake in advance to determine what the potential net impacts are or benefits, and ensuring that if such a project were to proceed, that the environmental attributes are not negatively or adversely impacted.
Thank you.
That,
Sorry, yes.
That's okay, Director
That's it.
Deck?
Thank you, that's perfect.
Okay, would you like to make a motion on this particular one? That it be accepted?
I
or-
move that Function 239 Community Parks Area I be approved.
And do I have a seconder? Director Segal, seconded. Any more discussion? Nope. Call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed, so that's approved as well.
And my understanding then, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15 were approved by previous motion.
Yep.
Which brings us back to 12. I don't believe that you had an amendment that didn't go through, but you didn't discuss Function 282 South Cowichan Community Parks.
Okay, now that one has been, that one wasn't approved.
No, just the amendment.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah,
the
that's
overall
right.
budget for Function 282 is next for discussion.
We would move, I move that we accept function 282 as read, as stands.
And that doesn't include your 7,500. Okay, moved. Any seconder? Director Segal, seconded. Any discussion on that one? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? Seeing none, that one is passed. It's approved as well, Mr. Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How is everybody doing?
Yeah,
Ready to move on to
everybody want a
R3?
break?
Let's do the next two blocks.
Next 2 blocks? All right.
Let's take 10 minutes. Or would you like 5 minutes or 10 minutes? 5 is fine.
3 or 5.
Okay, 5. And we're back again. Thank you very much, folks. That was a nice little break. My guardian angel here, Mr. Robbins, has suggested that this has been a long day so far. And if there's any appetite to set a time to finish today, I'm thinking in terms of 4 o'clock, and then we can pick up again tomorrow where we go. And we can make it 4:30 or 5 o'clock, whichever. And what's the feelings from the present people here? 4? Yeah, it seems to be 4 seems to be the favourite then. So we'll set a time limit of 4. If we're halfway through one of these here, we'll finish that off and then come back tomorrow. Thank you very much for that. So, Mr. Robbins, which one's next?
Mr. Chair, we're on to R3, which is the report Finance Division on the 2023 draft budgets for fire protection. You've already moved the recommendations 2, 3, and 8, so starting at the top. Number 1 recommendation is the draft budget for function 350, fire protection. Or maybe you should ask if
Yeah, I
anyone
think
wants
we
to
could
pull
do
anything.
this, if
you
anybody
want in
wants to
block.
pull anything. No? Okay, we could deal.
Or questions to staff.
Questions to staff. We have a staff member here. Let's try and deal with this as a block then, if that's okay with other people. Any objections to dealing with a block?
I have a question for staff.
Okay, go ahead.
So you can't get LNG lines down into Area H yet to help offset the costs that we have to pay for heating?
Through the chair to Director Berman, I think this is a loaded question.
Good luck with that one.
No answer needed.
I think that was a no. But,
That was a hard no.
and I'm sorry, do forgive me, but I
Rob
just.
Schooler, Fire Rescue
Bob
Service
Skurley,
Coordinator.
I thought I recognised, I just couldn't put a name to it, Mr. Skurley. I apologise for that. Thank you for being here. Anybody else that has any questions? Director McClinton, go ahead.
That's right, through the chair. You know, obviously, these are the services that are, I mean, absolutely to the core that, you know, support, you know, at my work, I like to ask this to my staff, just like, for something like this, is there anything that jumps out at you, or that, you know, was an anomaly that you did, that as you were putting these budgets together, that you'd like to mention, just in your own opinion? No.
Sure, thank you. Through the chair again. I can't reiterate enough how vital and essential the fire service is in all of our communities. These are run by volunteers at all hours of the day and night. And these budgets, in my opinion, as a career firefighter with municipalities from my career, they're run on a shoestring budget. They do a lot more with a lot less. And the only one that stands out for me this year is the North Oyster one, and you will see a supplemental budget request tomorrow. And that has to deal with maintaining facilities, which speaks to earlier comments about asset management programs and taking care of our facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Skurley. Yeah, you're absolutely right. They do. They go over and above, and they were out there at Christmas time ringing their bells and dressing up as Santa Claus and generally wowing the kids. So thank you very much to those people who do that. Thank you for being here. Any more questions for staff from anyone? I don't see anybody. So, Mr. Robbins, if we could.
A motion
perhaps-
then for recommendations 1, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And good. Director Abbott, seconder, please. Director Markman. All those, any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Oh, hang on a second. Miss Bowen. There's no number 9.
My apologies. There is, yes, N9.
Oh, the number's missing.
Function
Yeah, oh, yeah.
358. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so those, what he said, all those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
And moving on to,
R4, report from Finance Division, 2023 draft budgets, grant functions for non-profit organizations. This consists of 21 recommendations.
okay. Does anybody want any of those pulled for further discussion? Director Deck.
492, please.
Which is recommendation number 20.
Yep. Any others, apart from number 20? No? Okay, then, we can move
A
ahead.
consideration of a recommendation block, recommending,
I so move for all 21 except recommendation 20.
Good, thank you. A seconder, please. Director Segal, seconded. Motion on the floor.
Oh, my hand is up, sorry. Can I
Sorry,
read number 14? The draft budget for 478.
Okay.
okay.
So this
Sorry
would be a
about that.
this is a block of 19 recommendations, pulling out 14 and 20, function 478 and 492.
Okay. I think we need to move that again and second it again, Director Sakal. Okay, any more discussion on this one?
Any questions for
Any
staff?
questions for staff? Don't see any. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. So we go back to number 14.
Which is the draft budget for function 478, Couch and Station Area Association Area B.
Okay. Director Acton, I think it was you that wanted that one pulled. Would you like to go ahead,
Yes,
please?
thank you. I would like to raise the requisition by $4,000, making it 11,930.
Okay. Seconder for that?
Director Mark?
Second, Director Markman. Do you need to expand on that one, Director Acton? Discussion?
Well, I'm happy to explain the function. This is for the hub. Area B has a small population on the other side of the Coxsila that they are really part of Area E, or they feel like they are. It takes them 30 minutes to drive to Shawnigan Lake, so they fund a lot of the Shawnigan Lake functions. Although with the new regional recreation function, I think it's going to be more fair between B and E. It's going to be closer. But this is for the hub. It's a contribution from Area B. And, you know, they do a lot. Obviously, look at the budget. And Area E gives some money too. I'm not sure how much it is, maybe 25,000 or something. But I just want, they're growing and, they use a lot of volunteers, and like everyone else, there's added expenses. So it's not a lot of money, and they haven't had, I think I can't remember if it was raised last year, but every year I'm trying to add just a little bit more out of fairness as well.
Good. Thank you very much for that. There's going to call the question motion on the floor to increase this budget by 4,500, I think it was, or was it?
Clarity from Director Atkin?
Yeah.
$4,400, Director Atkin?
$4,000, making it 11,930.
Okay. So there's the motion on the floor. It has been seconded by Director Markman. The discussion has been had. Any more discussion on this one? I'm going to call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed. That is the amendment which is just passed.
Correct.
So we now go back and now vote on the actual
Function 478 as amended.
as amended. Proposed by Director Acton, seconded by Director McClinton. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? Seeing none, that one is approved as well. Number 20, function 492.
Draft budget for function 492, Mr. Chair, is the Couch and Lake Water Protection.
I think that was Director Dick that brought that one up.
Yes, I have a question for staff about that. It talks about voluntary contributions for future, I don't know, I've missed the rest of the sentence, but how actively can we pursue those voluntary contributions? I've never heard of them before.
Question for staff. Who can answer that one? Okay.
Staff is looking that up for a moment.
Staff's looking into that one right now, Director Dick.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll have somebody here.
I don't want to hold up anything, so I can wait for that. I mean, we can move forward and I can get the answer later.
I'll give Tracy another 12 seconds.
We can, Mr. Chair, you can move on to R5, and we
Okay,
can certainly
yeah.
come back to the recommendation number 20 under R4.
Is that okay with you, Director Dick? We'll come back? Good.
So then moving on to R4 is the R5, 2023 draft budgets for street lighting.
Okay, there's a whole bunch of those.
There
How
are
many are there?
18 recommendations with regards to
Street lighting.
street lighting.
Okay, any of those, would anyone like to pull any of those? Director Deck?
Function 565, critical street lighting.
That's recommendation number 11, Mr. Chair.
11, okay.
And just a reminder, under recommendation 10, it refers to area F, that should be area E, function 561.
Okay, so with any more, is there anyone, Director Martman?
Well, I don't have any lighting in Area H, we don't do that. But I'd like to, just a question to staff. if I may. So just a question for staff, in the title of street lighting versus critical street lighting. Could you, quick explanation?
Absolutely. We basically have kind of two types of street lighting. Critical street lighting is for the whole electoral area. So it's for an area, we have a policy for that. So if somebody says, I have a school we'd like to see lit up a little more, or post office, or daycare, those types of things, they'll send us request for it. We have a policy, we bring it to the board, and then if it's approved, everyone in that electoral area pays for it. Ornamental street lightings are more in stratas when there's a nice fancy pole and only that strata pays. That's critical. So for example, some of our, that's ornamental. So for example, Wilmot Road, Sentinel Ridge, Twin Cedars, Arbutus Mountain, Mill Springs, and one more Galliers, which is 556, I think. Those are all ornamental. So only that people in that service area pay for those ones.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question, actually, that's interesting, because...
Microphone?
Oh, I just turned it off, silly me. From the point of view of safety, if somebody said, look, this place is very dark in here, would that come under critical street lighting?
Somebody would have to bring it forward to us. For example, we've had some in Couch and Bay say, this corner is, really dark, it's at angles, we'd like to bring it in.
Yeah.
But we also, part of our policy says, we want to ask everybody that lives in that area, because just because you live 3 blocks away, you're not going to be affected by that every night.
Yeah.
And so part of our new policy, which was maybe 2 or 3 years old, we have to ask all the people in that area.
Okay.
And we have to have a majority of those people to bring it forward to say we want to have
That's
it.
good to know, because somebody did bring it up in my area, and I said, I'll find out. I
Yeah, and
just
we have
found
the
out.
policy, we're happy to provide the policy, and, they can do a little petition. And
Good,
send it in for us.
excellent. Okay then, so that is, where are we? We've now looked at critical street lighting, and Director Seagull.
Thank you, Chair. I'd also like to, I just have a question about number 16.
Go ahead.
So on the draft, the wages line is at $2,000, and I just wanted to clarify that that's accurate, as in 2020 it was only $226, and comparing to other similar functions, that wages line is in the hundreds and not thousands. So I just want a clarification on that.
Okay, I'll back up one more time as well. So for ornamental streetlights, we charge our time. For critical, we don't charge, our time, I mean operations time. For critical, it's hydro, because they're put on BC Hydro poles, and general government, who basically take care of things. But we still budget, we still do work, we take the calls, all those other things. So maybe at some point in time, water management or operations should actually charge a little of our time for the critical ones, but that's another discussion for another day. Critical ones, we do charge our time. Mill Springs budget, which is the one you're talking about, has 75 streetlights. All the other ones have about 25, so it's more. I looked at the past 5 years. That year was a mistake. It should have been 2,000. All the other ones are 2,000 a year for wages. That one was, I think, at the end of the year, it didn't roll over, and it was just 200. So, yeah, so that's what it is.
Good. Any more questions, Director Deck?
I don't know if this is function 565 or 551, it's the one that went up 305%.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I sure can. And that came, you remember when I tried to explain requisition increases at one of my last meetings, how you're allowed, a requisition limit is the amount that you're allowed to charge for a function. So we had 1,550 in that budget. What happened is we added streetlights, so we don't have the money to pay for hydro there. We also, BC Hydro also, so the committee and board approved adding streetlights. The other thing that happened is BC Hydro did a review of all the streetlights in the Cowichan Valley, and some have gone up and some have gone down. And if you look through my report, some of them I'll say this has jumped up because it's gone up. So now we have, in 2021, we had a $1,400 deficit. This year, I'm expecting it to be possibly $3,000 deficit. So we definitely need to increase requisition, or else we have to turn off streetlights. The other thing is, in order, it hasn't been the full 5 years. You can increase it 25% every 5 years. It hasn't been the 5 years. So originally, I thought we might have to do an AAP, an alternative approval process, in order to bump it up higher than that. I'm told now by our legislative services we can go directly to our the minister and raise it for specific reasons. In the past, approval, an AAP is about $2,000 to do it, do the stuff in the papers and all that. So I bumped it up to from 1,555 to 63, thinking, okay, we have to cover the deficits. In case that we have to do an AAP, that'll cover it as well. We also have zero reserves. We've used all the reserves up the last couple of years because of the deficit budgets. So that was basically a compounded thing, approval of a streetlight without having enough requisition to carry over 5 years, and the second that BC Hydro reviewed finding more lights.
So, thank you. So, in the report, it says something like they recounted their, so they recounted their polls and there was that much
Yes.
discrepancy between what
we
they
had,
thought
yeah.
they had?
Yeah, some were moved from some area. I think Area D had some that we counted and were actually in a different area. And our administrative, one of our administrative persons went through every street light with BC Hydro. So she did an amazing amount of work to find out which ones, and this isn't actually in this area. And she worked with them very carefully to find out which ones worked and which ones didn't.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You happy then, Director Deck? Is that okay? Oh, yes. Yeah, good, okay. No problem. Any more discussion on this? Any more questions for staff?
I might suggest then, Mr. Chair, that a motion for recommendations 1 through 18 then be appropriate.
Director Seagal, and seconded. Director Abbott. Any further discussion? Any more questions for staff? No? Call the question. All those in favour? All those opposed? I don't see any opposition. Approved.
Thank you. That moving then to R6, 2023 draft budgets, engineering services, utilities. There is one recommendation that the board, that'd be recommended to the board that the 2023 draft budget for function 576, engineering services, utilities, be approved.
What do I do now? I call for,
You can
ask for a motion? Or
ask
if
for the
there's
motion
a
to get
member
it
of
on
staff, which I see there is, to speak on this.
one of two things. You can bring it on the floor with a motion and then have a discussion.
Yeah, let's have a discussion. Can we bring it onto the floor, please? Can we have first of all, a motion to accept, and then we can have a discussion?
Move to accept the recommendation as presented.
Good. Second, Director Abbott. And we have the member of staff here already here. I'm going to go, because I've been looking at the report as well here, $225,000 which has, if I understand it correctly, is purely for improvements to the mill bays. I think mill bay.
Oh, right, yes,
Yeah.
yes. We have a grant for a Mill Bay sewer project. We don't have a function yet for it. So right now, we're working with our 4 different Mill Bay sewers. The grant we had was a $5 million grant for Mill Bay sewer. We have Mill Spring sewer, Sentinel Ridge sewer, Brulette sewer, Carey Village sewer. So we were originally planning to combine them into one. With COVID and everything else, we just managed to upgrade the sewer treatment plant. We have a couple $100,000 left to complete the sewer treatment plant. The project isn't done, but the grant should be done when we finish this couple $100,000. The next stage will be putting pipes in the ground to connect the 4 other sewer systems to this one, and then hopefully we can dissolve the other 4 treatment plants, have 1 treatment plant and 1 large sewer system.
Good. Good. And then, if I understand, there is no there's no effect on requisition here at all.
No requisition. This 576 budget is basically utilities. It's all the staff, inside, outside vehicles, all the admin costs for that. We basically charge user fees and parcel tax to sewer, water, street lighting, drainage.
Good, excellent. Any further questions for staff from anyone? Director Martman?
I was just saying, so just over 4% is the result of increased wages and benefits. And are all of them unionized through one union, or you have multiple unions, or any unions?
Yes, we have both steelworkers unions for the outside staff inside, and then we have management as well. 3 positions management, one of them is vacant right now. Our engineer position is vacant right now.
Okay. Director McClinton?
Yeah, I thought it was, am I looking at the wrong one? I thought it was 6.92%. I'm looking at the wrong function.
Sorry.
This is our
Just so you know, there's a link there, it takes you to function 576, and at the bottom of that is a year-over-year comparative analysis, which has the line item for wages, benefits.
I guess, I don't know where the appropriate time is to say this. It just comes back to, how are we to sit here and say it should be more, it should be less? This is incredibly challenging. I would like to, this isn't the right time for it. I'll save until the end. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Martman?
Just to follow up, if you do follow that down, there is underneath increased wages and benefits, there also is a line saying decreased transfer from operating reserve. So I think maybe you can comment about what was used last year?
Okay, operating reserve. Oh, yeah. I believe it was a staffing issue that some operating reserve was used to pay, so we didn't budget that, but there are going to be some operating reserve supplementals, 3 of them tomorrow coming for this budget.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess speaking to Director McClinton, I listened to you all day. I'm thinking, how can we cut this one? Really, about one of the few places is contingency for $25,000, which is very small. And if something were to happen, like a big legal case or something.
I agree, and I think, do we get to the end of this and we say, we're just going to live on the services side, approximately 9 or 10% increases? That feels like the route we're going, because it's incredibly difficult for us to make these decisions on your budgets when, the severity of the cuts. I think, I don't know how this would be put forward, but perhaps we can have like a larger motion for the staff to take a second sober look at it and spread it across. I think the board is just trying to, they have a desire to do something, and as you go through each function line by line, it's incredibly challenging to sort of, pull rank on something like, I have no idea what you do on a day-to-day basis and what that decision, how it's going to impact you and then the citizens as well, right? So, yeah, just a comment. But thank you, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion on this particular one? There is a motion on the floor to accept the amended, the budget function 578 as presented.
576.
576, yeah, 576. Any further discussion? No, I'll call the question. All those in favour? Opposed, if any? I see no one opposed. That motion carries.
Mr. Chair, that brings you to our 2023 draft budgets, water services. There are 24 recommendations before the committee.
Does anyone want any pulled? Director Abbott.
I'd request pulling item 3, function 604.
Okay. Director McClinton?
Come back to me.
Come back. Anybody else? Director Deck?
Function 652, please.
652, number 16.
That's 16?
Yep. Anybody else?
I have questions, so I
oh.
pull it to ask questions?
Okay. Yep.
No, is that right?
If it's a specific function, certainly.
Yeah.
If it's general.
Yeah, which one is it?
Yeah, sorry, just let me get the number here. Excuse me, sorry, I just lost, there it is, 640.
640.
Number 15, recommendation 15.
Okay, so if I have it right, we have numbers 3, 15, and 16 pulled. Any more? No. Can we have a motion to approve everything that's left out of that? 1 through 24, excluding 3, 15, and 16. Director Markman moving, Director Abbott seconding. Any discussion on those? None? Okay, call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed. That passes, Mr. Robbins. So we now go back to number 3.
Which is function 604, the Lambourne water system.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I ask, and I don't know what cost implications, but the residents enjoying the Lambourne water system are very, very concerned. They plan on approaching the BC Ombudsman for water quality, all sorts of mitigation efforts. They're not satisfied with the degree of manganese. It's apropos that at about 3:24, staff, Don Martin with Utilities, CVRD, just writes and supplies me with a letter that they propose sending to members of that water system, expressing new approaches to handling the manganese. It's beyond the scope of today, but I suspect that more resources are going to be needed for this function, and I just want to put the electoral area services on notice that Lambourne is not working properly. Staff recognize it, and current funding may not be sufficient, and I don't know what is, but obviously they want the water district to polish the water. They are doing it at present. Many of them are doing it at present to prevent damage to their equipment. I've seen photos of the filters that they have to clean on a quarterly basis. It's pretty intense. So the water is not of a standard for drinking, and that, as I say, this is delving deeper, but there's money to be approved today, but I want to forewarn that more money is going to be required.
Thank you, Director Abbott, and I see 2 staff members now. Comment on that one?
Yeah, thank you, through you. Yeah, that's correct. There's manganese in the Lambourne water system, and we're looking at options to improve treatment in that area. It does meet the drinking water quality standards, but obviously there's aesthetic objectives as well that we want to meet to improve quality. So we don't have detailed cost estimates on a proposed option at this point, but it's something that we will need to kind of plan for in the future.
If I may, through the chair.
Okay.
Thank you. Having lived on a property that had manganese, it's not just, I can drink it, I can digest it, but what it does to your equipment, your dishwashers, people with nice homes aren't satisfied with visually what you look at ends up on all your your devices. And I hasten to suggest it shortens the lives of a lot of equipment like washing machines and dishwashers, et cetera.
So there are plans to do something about this. It's just a question of when and how much it will cost. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And working out the details of what that plan is, the technical details of how we can accomplish that.
Okay, good. That you happy with that, Director Abbott? Okay, thank you very much, staff. So we're going to move on to number 15.
No, if you want to
Oh,
consider
sorry.
function 604.
Sorry, my mistake. Yep.
For approval?
So number 3, would you like to move that?
I would move.
Okay, that function 604 be approved, seconded by Director Markman. Any more discussion? Seeing none. Call question. All those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Number 15.
Which is function 640, is the Saltaire water system.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, just a couple quick questions. Actually, first, I do want to acknowledge my predecessor. She did a lot of great work on this file, working with you guys. A specific question, then a general question. I've just seen the total number of parcels at 861 and the total number of users at 875. Just always worried about people paying their fair share. Is there an explanation for that?
Okay, yeah, I guess I do user fees and put these budgets together. It is difficult because there's some multi-users, there's mobile homes and stuff. So I usually just take the full amount, divide it, and do an average.
Sure.
Lots of suites, lots of cabins, those types of things. So that may not be 100% correct, the number of users. We usually, and we often yearly actually ask our finance department to provide a list of users, and then we can count them up and see. So to the best of our knowledge, when we prepare budgets, but that could be not perfect.
Sure. So no freeloaders. Okay. Second question is very general. You know, is there any opportunity for savings on that, in your opinion? My general question.
Actually, no. We collect $300,000 every year to upgrade the system. For 2 years, we didn't collect that money because Island Health told us you have to build the treatment plant first. So we are building the treatment plant. They let us go ahead and build it. But if we didn't get that $300,000 a year, we'd be in a red budget.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
it's tricky, and with the cost of the capital project,
Yep.
it's going to be tricky to complete it and stay in these boundaries.
And when you say the capital project, are you referring to the filter or to the dam? Yeah.
The treatment plant,
Treatment plant.
Louise
Gotcha,
is
yeah.
referring to, but the 300,000 that Louise referred to is for the distribution replacement program.
Yeah.
So we did have, we are still having, 1 or 2 breaks a year probably in the distribution system. So there's still quite a bit of value in continuing with that
Yep.
program.
I think it's 7 more years for that 300,000. We had 15 years to
Yep.
spend 300,000. I think we're about year 8, I believe.
Yep.
About 7 years left. Yeah, so we're assessing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions on this particular one? No, would you move
Move to accept as presented.
as presented?
Recommended.
And seconded by Director Abbott. Any more discussion, any more questions? Seeing none, call question, all those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed, that one passes. Mr. Robbins?
You're on recommendation number 16, function 652, central Yuba water debt.
Director Dick.
Thank you.
Oh, you just switched off.
I'm just wondering, how, that's the cost of this term, this year's central water debt is, what is it, 36, oh shoot, sorry, $277,100, yeah?
The
Or
debt,
that's 653.
36,000, oh yeah, that central U-boat debt is 36,000, and that's just the debt for the pipe we put in between Lakeside and Yubo Central, and that's paying that debt off.
Oh, okay. And how much longer will that go on? You don't have to answer that. I can find that out in another time.
Maturity 2023.
33.
33.
Okay. And then
It's very small. print.
653 is $277,100. Now that's for,
Operating the Yubo water system. So we have 2 wells and the reservoirs at both ends, and it's everything for everybody in the Yubo. If you draw a line around the Yubo service area, it's providing water for everybody there. Not everybody, and then if you looked at the cover sheet, not everybody is connected. There's people still on their old systems, but they are in the service area, so they pay parcel tax. And in reality, they still get fire protection, so they may not pay a user fee if they don't get the water, but they pay parcel tax because they do have fire protection, and they have ability to plug into that system at any
okay,
time.
okay, thank you so much.
Director Dick, would you
That's it.
like to,
Oh, I move that the 2023 draft budget for Function 652, Central Yubo Water Debt be approved?
and a seconder, Director Markman seconded. Any more discussion, any more questions? Seeing none, call the question, all those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed, that's approved as well, Mr Robbins.
That's moving now to R8, report from the Finance Division, draft 2023 draft budgets with respect to drainage. There are 9 recommendations, 9 functions with regards to drainage.
Is there, Director Deck, you'd like to pull one?
No, I think we didn't pass 650, which one, 652?
Yeah, I thought we just did.
There's two functions. Yeah, we only voted
Yeah.
for one.
Only pulled one.
Oh, I only
Yeah.
pulled one. Oh,
Yeah.
so we're still waiting. Oh, sorry.
Nope, you
No,
you
it's all-
had previously passed in a block, and you just pulled the 652.
Okay. All right.
Draft budgets for drainage under R8.
Okay, anybody would like any of these pulled? I don't see anybody there. Can we deal with this as a block then? Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Segal.
Any questions to staff?
Any questions for staff on this? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed. That's approved as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're moving to R9, 2023 draft budgets for sewer services. There are 16 recommendations for the committee with respect to sewer services.
And same question as usual. Are there any in there that would Director Deck?
Function 811.
Recommendation number 8, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Any others? I don't see any others. Okay, then.
Did you want to consider then
Let's
1 through 16
1 through
excluding
16,
number 8?
excluding number 8. Moved, seconded. Director Abbott. And any more questions for staff or discussion on those? I don't see any. Call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed?
Mr. Chair, CAO.
Chair.
Yep.
I was trying to find an email. There was one from Director Nicholson regarding number 820, function 820. I just wanted to remind that. Sorry, I had to find the.
My apologies.
That's okay.
No.
You were hiding behind Director McClinton here. I couldn't see
Yeah,
you.
no, I had to actually find the email just to make sure. So she did have 2 change requests, and one of them is function 820.
Okay, okay. So that's.
Would we like to defer it, or did she want it deferred, or
She didn't.
should we introduce it?
She didn't
with the
provide
recommendation?
content in the email, but she did reference a conversation with staff. So I'm just wondering if anyone else has any, like Tracy, do you have any information? Or, and no, if she didn't provide details, then I'm not sure, but
Let me just check and
she
see
would
if
wanted to deferred possibly.
So I believe the suggested change to recommendation was to increase user fees by $25 annually?
Per home, which works out to about 18,000 per year. And to increase, she was hoping it to go to asset management, which probably would be a capital account. So I guess increase user fees by 18,000, increase capital by 18,000 specifically for that reason.
For capital replacement program.
Capital replacement.
So if the committee wants to consider then a motion to increase under function 820, requisition by 18,000 and increase reserves by that same amount.
Director Martin.
So this is in writing from her? What do you have?
Phone conversation yesterday, and she asked for the
If-
verbiage, but I didn't
Right.
have it with me.
We can certainly defer this. It's easy to defer this
I
to
think
tomorrow.
so, yeah.
We can get some clarity if she is well. She may be here. If not, we may get some clarity for your consideration tomorrow.
Yeah, the only thing I have in writing from her is Eagle Heights Sewer 820. Staff have prepared motions that I believe Patrick and Tracy have received.
Yeah, do we have to make a motion to reconsider tomorrow?
Yeah.
Like make it today though? Do we make the motion today to reconsider or?
So you haven't considered the block, you did?
We did.
And you
We
voted?
did.
Okay. Then yes, a motion to reconsider recommendation 12.
Director Martin?
So moved.
So moved. Seconded, Director Abbott. All those any discussion? All those in favour, call the question. Any opposed? None opposed?
And then that brings back function 820 for a motion to refer or defer till tomorrow.
So moved.
And seconded, Director Abbott. Any discussion? All those in favour? Any opposed? None approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Do you know what? That moves you to R10.
I know.
And it's, I'm sorry, and we're going back to number 8, Director Deck.
Yep, sorry, Director Deck.
Hi, there was an increase, sorry.
No, carry on. No, I was apologising.
There was an increase in the budget for Bald Mountain Sewer System. Is that for upgrades or what's it called? Short-term upgrades?
There are more properties in the service area.
Oh, so that's what that's for?
That's part of it, but we're also, I believe, last year we only had $2,000 surplus at the end of the year, which isn't much for a sewer system. And we have those upgrades that are required. So we do have a capital budget for $124,000. 50,000 of that is short-term borrowing that we'll have to secure later. The rest, we're trying to work with what we have now, and if those don't work, we'll probably come back to the committee for more to either short-term borrowing or possibly long-term borrowing for more upgrades for that sewer system.
Okay, thank you so much.
Would you like to?
Oh, I move that the draft budget for function 1118, the Bald Mountain Sewer System, be approved.
Function 811.
Seconded,
What did I
Director
say?
Martman.
1118.
What did I say?
Not 811. You said 18 or something.
Oh,
Seconded by Director Martman. Any more discussion? I see none. I'll call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? None?
Sorry, Director Deck and Mr. Chair, I just got so excited for you, that's why I went over to R10 right away. So I was just looking at the time. So you're to R10, report from the Utilities Division, gas tax funding reallocation from Area E Parks and Trails to the Dogwood Ridge Water System.
Yeah, Area E, I think, is Director Nicholson again. I haven't had anything from her as far as this is concerned, so I'm assuming that it is all in order to go ahead. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this? Moved by Director Segal and Director McClinton. Any discussion on this? I don't see any discussion. Okay, call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? None. That is approved.
Thank you. That moves you to agenda item number 5, question period. Sorry? Correct.
Oh, yes. Are you not coming up to the podium this time?
I need my computer.
There's one has there's a microphone with her. So we're moving back to, remind me, R4. Number 20, is that correct? Which is function 492.
Yeah, so through the chair to Director Deck, this one has been going on since, I think it was, last time we got 2006 is when we originally got the first set of money from a developer. So we've had some money from a developer. We got 2006, 7, 8, and 11. We got some money, and it's sitting in a fund making interest. So we put the interest back in through there, and we hold it, and then there's little projects that come out of that to do with the Couch and Lake watershed. So it's, they haven't had a lot that's gone through it since last time we did anything was 2014. So the money's just sitting there.
Are you happy with that, Director Deck?
Yes, yes.
Then a motion to,
That the 2023 draft budget for function 492 Couch and Lake water protection be approved. And? No?
No. No.
do your seconder.
Seconded by Director Martman. Yeah. Seconded by Director Martman. Any more discussion on this? Any questions? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Any opposed? Nobody opposed? That motion is approved.
Now, Mr. Chair, we go to section 5, question period. There's no one online to ask you any questions. I don't know if there's.
Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chair, I think you've done it. You've asked enough questions today. You've done it perfectly. This has been one of the better budget meetings I've attended.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. It's very nice to hear those kind of comments. So,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn. Director Abbott, and seconded by Director Martman. All those in favour? All those opposed? None. Finished. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.